By the way, today's your birthday, isn't it? Already 56, huh? Still not giving up on marriage even at this age? How about you, saying such things? Looking back, I'm really glad I was abandoned then. If I had stayed with a man like that, I would never have achieved the happiness I have now. I am Stacia, 56 years old. This was 27 years ago. It was the story of my 9th year at the company I joined after graduating from university. My job was as a receptionist at the company, handling visitors. Nice to meet you, I'm Willard Gibbons. I look forward to working with you. I'm Stacia Rawl at reception. The pleasure is mine. The man introduced as the successor to our client, Willard Gibbons, was the very person who abandoned me. He appeared to be about my age or a bit older. I'd like to say it was Willard's handsome face, but it was actually his voice that captivated me. Just hearing it made me fall for him. With that deep voice, "I like you, Stacia," Asterisk whispered in my ear. But surely, he must have a lovely wife and adorable kids. I indulged in such wishful thinking about Willard until, 2 years later, our relationship changed. It was my last day as a receptionist, as I was moving to another department. That day, Willard, who happened to visit the office, was told by me, "Actually, today is my last day at the reception as I'm moving to another department." To which he responded, "Oh, really?" Willard, whose expression seemed to darken for a moment, suddenly took out a business card, started writing something on it. "Please call me if you feel like it," and handed it to me. On the back of the card was Willard's home phone number. What, really? My heart raced at what could be construed as an advance from Willard, whom I had always thought was married. When I nervously called Willard, he told me he'd had feelings for me since our first meeting. Stacia, such a fitting name for your charming persona. It might be rude to ask a woman her age, but how old are you, Stacia? Taken aback by Willard's sudden familiarity, I hesitantly replied, "I'm 31. "What? 31? You're 5 years older than me? I'm sorry. I assumed you were younger, hence my casual tone." "No, it's fine." I was just as surprised to know his age. I had thought Willard was about my age or slightly older, not 5 years younger. Would you like to go out for a meal with me sometime?" Of course, my answer was a yes, especially when asked in his charming voice. We enjoyed a meal at Willard's favorite restaurant over the weekend. Then, on our way back, we were caught in a sudden downpour, getting completely soaked. "My house is nearby. You're welcome to come over to dry off your clothes and hair," he said. "Oh, but..." After a moment of silence, Willard spoke first. "Stacia, would you consider dating me?" "What? But I'm 5 years older than you." "It's fine. I was surprised at first, but you look young, and it's really okay." "I appreciate the sentiment, but I only date with marriage in mind." "So?" "I'm serious too. Please consider dating me, with marriage as our goal." It was dark, and I couldn't see his expression clearly, but he didn't seem to be joking. As I hesitated, Willard passionately spoke about marriage and finally said, "But, as a man and a professional, I'm not yet in a position to financially support you and a child. So, I ask for a little patience before we marry." Moved by Willard's sincerity and passion, I accepted his feelings. 2 years passed without a proposal from Willard, but our relationship was going smoothly. Then, suddenly, tragedy struck. I was diagnosed with a women-specific illness. I've always had severe menstrual cramps, but this time, I felt a dull pain in my lower back when it wasn't even my period, prompting a visit to the doctor. "I'll write a referral for you to a specialist right away." I couldn't stop crying in the doctor's office when I heard this. After undergoing thorough examinations at the specialist, I decided to have surgery and finally told Willard about my illness. I was worried when you said you had something serious to talk about. Glad to hear it's not life-threatening. But, Willard, you said you wanted children, remember? Of course, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But they only said there's a high risk of infertility, not that you can't get pregnant. So, stop looking so apologetic. Okay? Okay. After successfully undergoing surgery and being discharged, I made sure to live a healthy life, from diet to exercise, while attending regular hospital checkups. I started noticing a change in Willard's behavior after I was discharged. Whereas before, we almost always spent weekends together. It's important to have time with the guys, too. He began going out alone more often. I wondered, could there be another woman? An affair? I doubted Willard at times, but nothing beats Stacia's cooking. If I'm going to have a wife, she needs to be a great cook like you. He always enjoyed my cooking, and when we were together, Willard was the same as he ever was, so I chose to believe in him. Or rather, I kept telling myself, I have to believe in Willard, I must trust him. Then, 1 month before my 35th birthday, a day that would become fateful, the happiest event of my life happened. I was pregnant with Willard's child. I wondered how happy Willard would be to learn that I, who might have been unable to conceive, was pregnant. But, considering the risk of miscarriage, I couldn't tell him right away. Then came my 35th birthday. Willard had booked a private room at the fanciest restaurant we'd ever been to. I took my seat nervously, and when Willard asked if red wine was okay, I chose water instead. What's wrong, Stacia? You feeling okay? No, it's nothing like that. All right, but you said you had something to talk about. What is it? You said you had something to say too, Willard. You go first. After a brief back and forth of insisting the other go first. Okay, I'll start then. What came out of Willard's mouth was not what I had expected. What? You want to break up? What do you mean? I'm getting married. My girlfriend is pregnant. Wait a minute. Married? What do you mean your girlfriend is pregnant? It's exactly what it sounds like. Married? Girlfriend? What was all this about? I was in a state of panic, unable to comprehend what Willard was saying. So, what about me waiting for marriage as you asked? I'm pregnant too. Right now, your baby is inside me. What? A baby? That can't be true. Why would I lie about something like this? But Stacia, you said you had infertility issues. Were you deceiving me from the start? Making me think you couldn't have children just to create a fait accompli. How could you say that? I would never do such a thing. If you had someone else, you should have told me earlier. If only you had told me sooner. Maybe you never intended to marry me from the start. That's not true. It's not like I started disliking you. You're a great cook and pretty. But in the end, you're in your 30s, older. I thought it'd be better to marry and have children with someone younger. Anyway, if my girlfriend or her parents found out about this, what a thing to say. That's just awful. Before I could stop myself, my hand moved and I threw water in Willard's face. Hey! What are you doing? Be thankful it wasn't the red wine. What the hell? I'm soaking wet. I was planning to celebrate your last birthday grandly. Enjoy your life with your young girlfriend. I stood up and left the restaurant. A few days later, Willard came to my apartment. I don't want any trouble later. This is for the hospital bills and a token of gratitude for everything. Please, take it without hesitation. He handed me an envelope filled with cash. I don't need your money. I wanted to throw the envelope back at him. But I needed money to raise my child alone. Fine, I'll take it. As I took the envelope. So you're taking the money after all. Well, it's fine. Let's call it even, no hard feelings. I hope you find someone nice and be happy, Stacia. With those words, Willard left the apartment. I promised my unborn child. I will protect you, Mom will keep you safe. 21 years later. The man I never wanted to see again, ironically, I met on my 56th birthday. Heading somewhere that day, I was waiting for the elevator on the ground floor of a certain building. Then, after I got into the elevator, a man wearing glasses followed in from behind. Which floor, please? He replied. 5th floor, thank you. His voice, deep and to my liking. Sounded familiar. But without turning around, I also got off at the 5th floor, following the man. He stopped in front of a marriage consultation office. Noticing me standing behind him as he hesitated to enter, the man turned around. After a few seconds of mutual puzzlement, we exclaimed in unison. Why are you here? Same question to you. What are you doing here? Yes, the man was Willard Gibbons, the one who abandoned me when I was 35. Once slim and muscular, his body now had a belly overhanging his belt, reminiscent of Winnie the Pooh. Willard, now wearing glasses, had changed so much that I might not have recognized him just by passing by. I, too, had changed. Time spares no one, it seems. And once again, I realized the formidable power of 21 years. As I was thinking this, Willard suddenly pointed at me and burst into laughter. By the way, today's your birthday, right? 56 already, huh? Still haven't given up on marriage at your age? You still remember my birthday? If I'm old at 56, then at 51, you're old too, aren't you? What are you talking about? I'm only 51. You round up, and you're practically 60. More importantly, why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be married? Did you get divorced? Yeah. She couldn't cook or even do laundry, washed vegetables with dish soap. I married her because she was young and cute, but not being able to do household chores is unacceptable. So, I decided to cut my losses. What about the child? Wasn't she pregnant? Child? She miscarried soon after. Looking back, I should have taken the child from you at that time. What? After all this time? Even if I had given birth then, I would never have handed my child over to you. By the way, Willard, do you have a reservation? This place is by appointment only. What? Reservation? I just passed by and saw the sign, thought I'd drop in to kill time. No need for a reservation, right? Was it age? Or something else with Willard himself? He had become surprisingly rude. I didn't want to spend another minute with such a man. I thought about how to get rid of him. But then it struck me. Could this be an opportunity? Yes. It must be. A chance given by fate to settle a 21-year-old grudge. I abandoned the idea of driving him away and smiled at Willard. I'm going to the restroom. Please go ahead inside. Pretending to go to the bathroom, I sent a message on WhatsApp to someone. Then, entering the consultation office, I listened to the voices in the private rooms. Well, I'm not in a hurry to get married, but, just killing time. Mr. Gibbons, our clients are all serious about marriage. If you're just here to joke around, please leave. I'm sorry. I'm not joking. I'm serious about finding a wife. Please help me. Where did his earlier bravado go? Maybe he was nervous in front of a young woman. Hearing the now apologetic voice of Willard, I almost burst out laughing. In that case, Mr. Gibbons, could you tell us your indispensable criteria for a marriage partner? Well, I'd like someone in her early 20s, petite, good at cooking, and healthy enough to have children. And she should be sociable and intelligent, quick thinking. That's my ideal. Excuse me? The husband works outside, the wife takes care of the home, including housework, childcare, and social interactions. She needs to be sociable. Also, I'm the eldest son, so I'd prefer someone willing to live with my parents. Don't worry. My parents are kind and gentle like me. They won't be a nuisance. Eventually, she might need to take care of them, so having a caregiver's qualification would be a plus. Hearing Willard list his ideal conditions, I was astonished. Mr. Gibbons, frankly speaking, the number of women we can introduce to you is close to 0. Suddenly, Willard's polite tone turned into a sharp one. What? 0? I get it for a 56-year-old, but I'm only 51. Are you saying you can't introduce anyone to me? Mr. Gibbons, who is this 56-year-old you mentioned? Are you referring to my mom? Your mom! Yes, I am that mom. I opened the door and stepped in. You! Surprised, Willard was lost for words. It's easy to say anything when no one's listening. You're too ambitious for an old man. Such an ignorant fool. I am Stacia Cocker, the head of this marriage agency. And this staff member is my daughter, Mavis. Eh? Indeed, the person I messaged while pretending to go to the bathroom was Mavis. I apologize for the late introduction. I'm Mavis, her daughter. Mr. Gibbons, I heard you were a great help to my mom in the past. Allow me to thank you belatedly. No, it wasn't like that. Wait, you two are mother and daughter. Does that mean, is that child mine? My daughter? Of course not. She's 25. If I had a child back then, they would be around 20 now. Eh? She is Floyd's daughter, whom I married when I was 38. She's my precious daughter now. I married Floyd, who had lost his wife to illness and was raising his daughter alone through a marriage agency. And now, I want to help people who are raising children alone for various reasons, just like my husband and I did, to find their own encounters. I want to make the concept of meeting someone feel more accessible and closer to the heart. Inspired by that thought, I opened a marriage consultation agency when I was 42 years old. Thanks to being abandoned by you 21 years ago, I found a happy family and a fulfilling job. Thank you very much. What? I never wanted to see you again, but being able to thank you like this clears my heart. But please, never show yourself to me again. What? Never show my face again? I don't want to see yours ever again either. Mavis then spoke to Willard, who was glaring at me. Then, Mr. Gibbons, it seems we weren't meant to work together. Could you please leave now? I would have left even if you hadn't said that. We wish you luck and hope you find a suitable match. The exit is that way, please take care. As Mavis politely guided him. Mocking me, mother and daughter together. Frustrated, Willard threw his paper coffee cup against the wall. However, the paper cup was empty, having been drained of its contents. It fell to the floor, making a faint, pitiless sound. He then lifted the chair he was sitting on. I immediately instructed Mavis. Mavis, call the police. No, call Floyd directly. There's a man causing a scene. Right, Dad will come quickly. As Mavis was about to call. Wait! Your husband is a cop. Fine, I won't do anything. I'm leaving, just don't call. Rushing to leave, Willard headed in the wrong direction. That's the bathroom. The exit is over there, as Mavis just said. It's a confusing layout. It's all a nuisance. He kicked a nearby potted plant and limped out of the room. Take care. Mavis and I waved him off with smiles. Mom, it was really a good thing you broke up with him. And he even thought Dad was a cop. Really? He's so clueless. My husband Floyd isn't a police officer but owns a security company. An avid rugby player since high school, Floyd could easily handle Willard. Let's go home early for your birthday celebration tonight. Yes, let's. As for Willard Gibbons, who fled our marriage agency. After that, he seemed to have gone to another marriage consultation agency, but was quickly expelled for causing trouble, and the same thing happened at the next agency he visited. Eventually, Willard was labeled a dangerous person by the marriage agency industry in the area and was banned from entering. He caused a major scene at one of the agencies that rejected him. I heard from a colleague that he was detained and taken away by the police who responded to a call about his behavior. Meanwhile, I celebrated my 56th birthday with my family. Really, both Brannon and Dad, a father and son who both hate tomatoes. Sis, can't help it. I take after Dad. Come to think of it, you've recently started to look more like Dad, haven't you? Now you too, Mom. It's normal for a family to resemble each other, right? That's true. This Brannon, who Mavis and I were teasing, is the child who was in my womb 21 years ago. I told Brannon about his biological father when he turned 20. I am who I am today because of that man, but I don't want to meet or even think about the guy who abandoned Mom and me. My dad is my only dad, and my family is Dad, Mom, and Sis. Brannon said this to me. If Willard ends up leading a bachelor's life forever, that would be his own fault. It's none of my concern. However, for Brannon, he is a blood-related father. That's an undeniable fact. For Brannon's sake, I hope Willard can lead a decent life. Brannon and I have plans, so we'll be heading out first. Huh? I don't have any plans, though. You really are clueless. Come on, let's go. Okay. You two enjoy the rest of your time. Thanks to Mavis and Brannon's consideration, I walked along the coast, shoulder to shoulder with my husband, Floyd. The sea breeze felt pleasant on my cheeks. Stacia, thank you for being with me. And please continue to be with me. Likewise, thank you. We naturally held hands as we walked. I am Penelope, 23 years old and still single. My family is a prestigious one that has been passed down through generations. Born the only daughter in this family, I wasn't spoiled but was raised strictly by my dad. I must say, I grew up to be a sensible and serious person. I started dating the handsome Thomas, 27 years old, a year ago through a friend's introduction. I was ready to get married if he proposed, but Thomas hadn't popped the question yet. I always thought to myself, hurry up and propose already. One day, while on a date with Thomas, I decided to subtly probe him. Hey Thomas, what's your dream? Well, I guess to work hard, eventually lead a team, and take on some responsible roles. You always talk about work, don't you? Yeah. Sorry about that. Thomas laughed, so I laughed along with him. What's your ideal view of marriage, Thomas? I suppose, coming home tired from work to someone who welcomes me warmly. Work again, huh? Yeah, haha. Do you think I could be the one to welcome you warmly? That's something we'll only know when it happens. Thomas kept dodging my questions. But I asked one more thing. Do you like kids, Thomas? I think I probably do. You're not very clear, are you? Yeah. Sorry about that. We continued our relationship, always having a great time on our twice-a-week dates. But things started to change with Thomas the day after my 24th birthday. Up until then, I had never talked about my family to Thomas, and he never asked. I was warned by Mom to be wary of men who might be after our family's wealth. But I decided to invite Thomas over to my house on my birthday. When Thomas visited my home, he was shocked. Penelope's house is amazing. I'm envious. It's just big and old. It's the exact opposite of my house. Houses don't matter. Come in. Mom greeted us as we entered and led Thomas to the drawing room. Thomas looked around, but seemed to relax after taking a sip of the coffee brought by the housekeeper. He said with a wry smile, "This drawing room is huge. It's bigger than all the rooms in my house combined. If the family's happy, the size of the house or rooms doesn't matter." Really? If my mom saw this, she'd be floored. That's a bit of an exaggeration. Not really. That's when Mom joined the conversation. What does Thomas's dad do? He passed away 10 years ago. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. No, it's okay. My mom is working energetically at a local supermarket. That's good to hear. We were having such casual conversations. During this, when Mom mentioned that my dad was hospitalized with lung cancer, Thomas showed great concern and asked about his condition. Seeing Thomas getting along and talking with Mom made me really happy. However, the very next day, Thomas changed. He had never shown any interest in my family or asked about it. But now, Thomas started asking all sorts of questions. Penelope, your house is impressive, but how large is the property? I'm not interested, so I don't know. Don't people usually know that? That's why I don't know. Okay. You don't have any brothers or sisters, right? That's right, I'm an only child. But why are you asking this? No, just asking. By the way, I'd like to visit your house, Thomas, and meet your mom. That's fine any time, isn't it? Seems like you don't want me visiting your place. Not at all. Then think about it, okay? Thomas said with a slightly reluctant look. All right, but I can't say when. Since then, Thomas began visiting my house more frequently. The old Thomas wouldn't have, but now he kept insisting on visiting. And whenever he came, he would extensively inquire about family relations and the land we owned. At one point, I said, "What's with all these questions? It's like you have some ulterior motive." Thomas looked surprised for a moment, but quickly returned to his usual expression. No, just asking. His answer was exactly the same as before, but I thought Thomas was up to something. About a month had passed when Thomas, with a big smile, suddenly suggested we live together. And finally proposed to me. I was overjoyed, but told him I'd answer later. That night, I called Mom and told her about the proposal from Thomas. But Mom's voice wasn't one of joy, it was worried, so I asked her, "Mom, what's wrong? You sound worried." It's not a big worry. Thomas's mom called, asking about the land and the house. It's a bit rude, isn't it? Really? Thomas has been asking me the same. Maybe he's plotting something. That's why, Penelope, maybe you should wait before answering the proposal. I think so too. I'll look into Thomas a bit more. That's a good idea. After the call with Mom, I phoned Thomas. Thomas, I just told Mom about the proposal. She was really happy. That's good. But she said I should discuss it with Dad before answering. So please wait a little longer for my answer. What's that about? Well, please answer as soon as possible. Okay, I understand. Thomas sounded disappointed and quickly ended the call. The next day, I went to visit Dad in the hospital. How are you feeling, Dad? Not too bad. More importantly, Penelope, you seem to have something to tell me. I heard from Mom. I got proposed to. I wanted to tell Dad about it. If Penelope has chosen him, I have nothing to say. Just be happy. But recently something has been bothering me. What's that? This man keeps asking about Dad's house. Like how big is the land, who owns it, and such. That does sound suspicious. You think so too, Dad? That's why I'm not answering the proposal yet. That's right. Answer only after you're sure you can trust him. Yes, I understand, Dad. Thank you. I'll get discharged soon to see Penelope in her dress. Please get well soon. I left the hospital after telling Dad that. I had no idea that this would be my last conversation with him. The following week after visiting Dad, I went to Thomas's house. Previously, when I said I wanted to visit his house, he always found excuses to avoid it, but this time he readily agreed, and I visited. Just as Thomas said, it was a small and old house. But I didn't mind that at all. When Thomas and I entered his house from the entrance, Thomas's mom was waiting for us. Nice to meet you, I'm Penelope. Welcome, Penelope. Thomas always talks about how much you help him. Please make yourself comfortable today. Thomas's mom was very kind and seemed to love talking, as she kept going from one topic to the next. It was when Thomas went to the restroom. Penelope, what do you think about our Thomas? I was taken aback by the question, and after a brief pause, I answered. Yes, I think he's very kind and sincere. Then, I'd like you to accept Thomas's proposal. I was surprised again and blurted out. Yes. The moment I said that and realized what I had said and was about to correct myself, Thomas came back, and his mom said to him with a broad smile, Thomas, Penelope has agreed to be with you. Hearing that, Thomas also smiled broadly and said to me, So you finally decided. Thank you. I said to Thomas. That's not what I meant. I started to say the words of denial, but Thomas cut me off. Don't worry about a fancy ceremony, just getting registered is enough. I was at a loss for words. Confused and unsure of what to do. I called Mom the next day. Yesterday, I went to Thomas's house for the first time and somehow ended up agreeing to marry him. He wants to just register the marriage without a ceremony. Oh dear. And how do you feel, Penelope? Dad said to answer Thomas only if I could trust him, so I didn't want to answer yet. If that's what you think, Penelope, then don't register the marriage. Can I do that? You can or can't, just don't submit the marriage registration. But Thomas will find out. Just tell Thomas that you've already submitted it. Isn't that lying? Won't it cause problems later? If you find out Thomas is truly trustworthy, then secretly submit the marriage registration. Following Mom's advice, the next day I said to Thomas, Thomas, did you sign the marriage registration? Thomas looked happy and was signing it. I felt a pang in my heart at that moment, but I endured it thinking of my future happiness. Thomas and I decided to live in the apartment I had been living in, as Thomas said his family home was too small. Early one morning, not long after we started living together, I received a call from Mom. The ringing sounded like an urgent plea. When I looked at my mobile phone screen, it was indeed from Mom.
Mom, what's happened? Penelope, come to Dad's hospital immediately. Dad has.
Her words at the end were drowned in tears. I quickly got ready and rushed to the hospital, arriving at Dad's room. There, Mom was crying, draped over Dad's body. The doctor, he passed away 5 minutes ago, told me. I screamed and embraced Dad's body, growing colder, alongside Mom. The doctor and nurses had kindly left the room. After completing all the funeral arrangements and other procedures with Mom, I became like an empty shell. I had no energy to do anything. If Dad were alive,
Pull yourself together, Penelope,
he surely would have said. I wished to hear Dad's voice even if he scolded me. As I was sitting absent-mindedly in Dad's bedroom, thinking about him, Mom came in and said to me,
Penelope, actually, Dad left you an inheritance.
Surprised, I said.
Eh? Inheritance?
Yes, Dad passed away a little before giving me a will, and in it, he wrote about the inheritance for Penelope. I remembered my strict yet kind dad and tears overflowed again. The inheritance is $3 million. Dad said he wanted to make sure Penelope wouldn't face any hardships in the future. Crying, I said,
I don't know what to do with such a huge amount of money. Right now, it's best to deposit it in a bank.
Yeah, I'll do that. Having transferred Dad's inheritance to my account, I suddenly became very wealthy, but frankly, it was an overwhelming amount. After Dad's death, when things calmed down a bit, I returned from my family home to my apartment. Thomas was watching TV when I entered the room. How are you feeling now? Better?
I'm okay now.
Thinking I shouldn't dwell on this sadness forever, I forced a smile. It was Sunday afternoon, 3 days later. When I returned from shopping, Thomas's mom was there. Then Thomas saw me and said,
Transfer all the money to Mom's account right now.
I was puzzled.
All the money? I don't understand what you mean. The money in your account.
Why would Thomas know about my bank account? I just saw your banking card in your desk drawer. I was outraged that Thomas had looked at my banking card without permission.
That's terrible. Is it okay to do that? We're married, aren't we? No secrets.
I'm not hiding anything, but is it okay for Thomas to look through my things without asking?
That's what marriage is.
The conversation was going in circles. At this moment, I was convinced that I should not marry this person. Listening to our conversation, Thomas's mom said,
A wife with money is never a good thing, LOL.
At that, my anger exploded. I am unmarried. Both Thomas and his mom exclaimed in unison.
What?
That's right. I am not married to Thomas.
What do you mean? We're married, aren't we?
Did Thomas submit the marriage registration to the office?
I didn't submit it, but I told you it was okay just to register the marriage, right?
Yes, you did say that.
But I haven't registered it yet. So, we are not married. I am single.
At those words, Thomas collapsed on the floor. Penelope, you are unbelievable. I haven't lied about anything. I am not the unbelievable one. Isn't it more unbelievable to look through someone's banking card without permission?
It's not too late. Please register the marriage.
I can't do that. Absolutely not.
Please, Penelope. I'm begging you.
Why do I have to transfer my money to your mom's account? I don't understand. The thing is, we're in a huge debt. I was hoping you could help us. Please stop calling me you. And there's no reason for me to help you.
But if you marry Thomas, you'll be his wife. That's a selfish reason and doesn't justify it.
Please, Penelope. What kind of debt is it? Well, let me say it, Mom. I've been divorced before. My previous wife was a rich girl, high maintenance, and did nothing for me.
What does that have to do with my money?
Living with such a woman, I ended up getting involved with another woman, got caught, and she divorced me. Then she demanded a ridiculous amount for the divorce settlement.
I see. So you want me to pay for that divorce settlement?
This is too absurd for words.
Wait, hear me out. I couldn't pay that amount and argued in court, but she brought a skilled lawyer and eventually I signed it.
After hearing everything, it's even more ridiculous. Why should I pay for your ex-wife's divorce settlement?
I thought if you married Thomas, you could help him.
Even if I officially married him, I would never pay such money. Saying this, Thomas's eyes filled with tears.
Marry me.
Please marry Thomas. Then shall we get married? Their expressions brightened momentarily at my words. But then I said, but as I said earlier, even if we get married, I won't pay a cent for that divorce settlement. Are you still willing to marry me? Their expressions returned to normal, and Thomas's mom, now crying, said, Penelope, please show us some mercy. Such tearful please don't work on me. Even after we've begged so much, it's still no? Yes, it's a no. Absolutely no. Dad said to marry someone I can trust. Don't you trust me? No, I don't trust you at all. Trust level 0. Hearing my firm response, Thomas said with a bitter expression, I see. I didn't think you were such a cold woman. I didn't expect Thomas to be after my money either. Thomas's mom angrily said to me, Get out of this house.
Don't say such ridiculous things. This is my apartment. It's under my name. Is that true, Thomas?
Yeah, it is. You two need to leave. Please go and never appear before me again.
We'll leave, but we'll come back for our things.
No, I don't want to see Thomas's face. Please have the movers collect them.
You're such a cold woman. It's good that you're not Thomas's wife.
Yes, I am a cold woman. So please leave quickly. As I said this, the two left the apartment, throwing hateful glances at me. After they left, I went back to my family home and told Mom everything about Thomas.
He was such a terrible person. Good thing you didn't register the marriage. Yes. It's awful to think of using Dad's precious inheritance for his ex-wife's divorce settlement.
Now that you haven't registered the marriage, just forget about it.
Yes, I will. Next time, I'll find a truly wonderful man. I'll support you.
About 2 months later, Thomas called. What is it? You shouldn't have any business with me anymore. I know, but I need to borrow some money. Thomas, don't you have any common sense? You think I'll lend you money? I knew it was a long shot. Okay, I understand. Thomas hung up abruptly. A few days later, I was shopping in a department store in a busy area, a bit away from where I usually go. I was looking for my favorite brand when I accidentally bumped into a skinny man in work clothes and an elderly woman collecting trash, causing their cart to tip over. I hurried to apologize, and when I saw the man's face, it was Thomas. The woman picking up trash nearby was Thomas's mom. I quietly said to Thomas, Excuse me, it was my fault. Thomas replied in an even quieter voice, No, I'm sorry. Are you hurt? Thomas clearly saw my face but reacted as if I were a stranger. Seeing his gaunt appearance and poor complexion, I thought he might be unwell, but reminded myself he was no longer my concern. Thomas and his mom finished picking up the trash and moved on to the next section. Their backs showed no signs of life.
You always look beautiful. Today, too. You're nothing like my wife. I wish I could marry you soon.
It was in the middle of the night when I woke up to go to the bathroom. I heard a surprising conversation from the living room.
I'd also prefer a beautiful mom. I'd be happy that it could happen.
Apparently, my husband and son were on a video call with someone. From the conversation, it seemed likely that it was my husband's mistress, and shockingly, my son was also talking with the woman.
What in the world is going on?
After all the times they've ignored me, to do something like this. For the past month, I've been treated as if I didn't exist by the two of them. Ignored completely, even when I spoke right in front of them, and on top of that, the meals I cooked were thrown in the trash. I felt my heart turning cold.
And so, I vowed to get my revenge.
My name is Lucy, a 39-year-old housewife. My husband Albert is a 45-year-old office worker, and our son Frederick is a 14-year-old middle school student. Our family was just an ordinary, average one, living happily together. Albert had an average income for his age and a normal look. But he was a very kind man. Our son, in the 8th grade, was in his rebellious phase, not listening to me, but I still adored him as my sweet boy. I worked hard as a housewife, doing everything all I could to support our family. However, our peaceful happiness shattered suddenly one day. It all started a month ago.
Frederick, dinner's ready.
One evening, I called out to my son, but he completely ignored me. Well, it's just a teenage behavior, I thought. At that time, I didn't care much.
I'll leave them there in plastic wrap.
I just said that and left it alone. But I noticed something was off when my husband came home.
Welcome back. Dinner's ready.
I called out my husband, but he also ignored me. Then, my son came out of his room, running up to my husband.
Dad, welcome back. Did you buy dinner? Yeah, your favorite burgers. Awesome. Meat's the best, right?
Then, my husband and son threw the dinner I made, with the plates, into the trash.
What the heck? What are you doing?
Ignoring me completely, they began eating the burgers from the grocery store which they had spread on the table.
Why have you been ignoring me all this time?
I asked for a reason, but both my husband and son just silently ate their burgers, as if they couldn't hear me. I felt like I had become invisible. After finishing, they returned to their rooms, leaving the mess behind. Crying, I picked up the plates from the trash can. I ended up throwing away the burger trashes they left behind. Since that day, for a whole month, I was treated as if I was non-existent. No matter what I said or did, it was as if I was invisible to them. From about a week later, I gave up and started making meals just for myself. My parents are farmers and they send fresh, delicious vegetables to our house. I used these vegetables to make meals, thinking of my family's health, but it was unbearable to see them thrown away uneaten every day. Eventually, even the meals I made for myself got thrown away by them when I wasn't looking. There was even a time when they deliberately crushed the fresh vegetables which my parents sent right in front of me.
This is kind of a stress reliever, huh? Why are you doing this? Did I do something wrong? Tell me and I'll fix it.
They continued to stomp on the vegetables, laughing mockingly, as if they couldn't see me no matter how much I cried and screamed. Then, my husband did something unbelievable. This one too, no need for it anymore, I'll throw it away.
It wouldn't fetch much even if I sold it.
He took off his wedding ring from his left ring finger and threw it into the trash can. It was supposed to be the symbol of our precious bond. That was the last straw for me, and I shut my heart down. I couldn't believe he would go as far as to throw away our wedding ring. What is he thinking? My sadness and anger finally reached the limit. I secluded myself in my room. From behind my room's door, I could hear my husband and son laughing together, which only deepened my sorrow. Why did things turn out this way? What happened to them? Confused and distressed, I spent a month crying alone in my room. One late night, while walking to the bathroom, I overheard a joyful conversation of my husband and my son from the living room. I felt lonely, knowing I was no longer part of their world. But then, they started a video call with someone, and the conversation that ensued was unbelievable. "Sophie, you look beautiful today, too. You're nothing like my wife. I wish I could marry you soon."
Really? Ditch that wrinkled and spotted woman fast and marry Sophie. I'd be so happy to have such a beautiful mom.
I couldn't hear the other person's voice, but my husband and son were praising someone over the phone.
Mother? What are they talking about?
It was unbelievable. From their conversation, it was clear my husband was having an affair, and my son knew and was encouraging it. Their terrible conversation continued.
Lucy really is a foolish woman, isn't she? Now that she's shut herself in her room, we don't have to see her wrinkled, spotted face, which is such a relief.
Haha, it's hilarious.
She really seems to know we can't see her.
They were mocking me. I felt my heart was freezing. I knew my husband was working hard but was being passed over for promotion at work. I believed my son was just being rebellious because of his age. That's why I had been patient until now.
But this was too much. What was my endurance for? Knowing the truth ignited the anger that had been smoldering inside me. I couldn't forgive this, not even because they were family. At that moment, I decided to take revenge.
For the next 2 months, I researched my husband's mistress, waiting for the right moment for revenge. Then, one day, my husband approached me. "Hey, I need to talk to you." "Oh, it's been a while since you came to talk to me. Are you done ignoring me?" "Yeah, you're of no use to me anymore." My husband handed me divorce papers with a nasty smile. And my son was grinning beside him. "I've found someone else. Leave this house." I took the divorce papers from the table with no expression.
"Fine,"
I answered. They were surprised, as if they didn't expect my agreement. "Huh? You know things very well. We could have divorced sooner then? I had a feeling it would come to this. I already packed. I'll leave tomorrow morning." "Oh, okay. Anything else you want to say?" "What do you want me to say? Beg you not to throw me away?" "No, just sign the divorce papers." My husband seemed a bit let down, but I didn't care and signed the papers, returning them to him. They probably didn't expect that things wouldn't go so smoothly. They looked at each other, but then laughed, as if it was fine as long as I agreed to the divorce.
I wonder how long their smug smiles will last. They had no idea that hell was waiting for them after this. The only one who knew it at this point was me. I was laughing inside myself.
The next day, I packed my bags and decided to go back to my parents' house. "Then, thank you for everything up to now. You really don't regret it? I can reconsider if you want." "Why? You're the one who wanted a divorce, right? Did you think I'd be crying and begging you to stay?"
What did you say? Dad, it's fine. We won't be troubled without a woman like her. That's true. She's a woman who no longer matters to us.
My husband seemed to have mixed feelings about me agreeing so easily to the divorce. But that was no longer of my business. The husband I loved had already changed. The husband I knew before would never have treated me like I didn't exist or laughed in such an unpleasant way. I felt the last 15 years of our marriage were in vain. Goodbye. Please take care. What happens to them after this has nothing to do with me. After all, my husband himself said that I no longer mattered to them. Upon my return to my parents' home, they welcomed me warmly. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry." The vegetables you sent were either thrown away or trampled on by my husband and son, and they all went to waste. I truly felt sorry for not being able to appreciate my parents' kindness. Wasting food brings punishment. I've seen plenty of people like them suffering. My father was concerned about the scars of my heart. Feeling the warmth of my parents after a long time, I couldn't stop my tears. Meanwhile, the hell for my ex-husband and son was just beginning. Within a week of our divorce and returning to my parents' house, my ex-husband and son came rushing to our doorstep. The moment they saw my face as I opened the door, they started making a scene.
Lucy, help us! We were deceived. That's what I told you, Dad. It was suspicious. No, you never said that. You were happy about getting a beautiful mother instead of Lucy.
Hearing their ugly quarrel, I managed to keep from laughing and responded calmly. What? You just realized? Shouldn't it have been obvious? You're really foolish.
You knew about it? Of course. Sophie, right? There's no way a woman that beautiful would be interested in a man like you.
My ex-husband gasped in surprise. Sophie was my husband's mistress. He was quite shocked that I knew what Sophie looked like. Actually, after hearing their conversation in the living room, I sneaked out of my room while they were sleeping and checked my ex-husband's phone, which was charging in the living room. The phone was locked, probably as a precaution, but I knew he used his birthday as the password, so it was easy to open. I was astounded by his lack of security awareness and how he underestimated me, thinking I wouldn't know his birthday. Well, anyways, I opened his text messages and found a lot of exchanges between him and Sophie, like a couple in love. Just thinking about it now makes me nauseous. But Sophie's profile picture was too beautiful to be true. She has exotic features on her face, so beautiful that she could be an idol or a celebrity. No, it was definitely suspicious. There was no reason for such a beautiful woman to be attracted to an average man like him. So, I did an image search with Sophie's photo. Nowadays, you can search the internet using photos, not just keywords. That's when a shocking truth came to light.
That's Sophie, she's actually a middle-aged man, just like you.
There was a warning posted on the internet about a marriage scam artist. Just to be sure, I asked a police officer friend from my school days, and it turned out to be true. Even a famous manga artist got caught in this kind of scam and lost $750,000.
No way! I did a video call with her. It was definitely that beautiful woman.
My husband was desperately trying to deny it, seemingly unwilling to believe. My son, too, was dumbfounded, thinking it couldn't be a scam.
But suddenly, we couldn't get in touch anymore just as we were about to get married. She ran off with our money. Oh, you donated quite a lot, didn't you? I believed that beautiful woman was going to be my mom. We even talked through video calls. But nowadays, you know, even in video calls, with software, a man can pretend to be a woman. Did you know?
These days, gender transformation tools can change one's gender and appearance in calls, making them look like a completely different person. The voice can be easily altered from male to female, and the facial expressions change during the conversation, so it's hard to tell it's fake. It's truly a terrifying era.
No way! My Sophie is a middle-aged man? When I saw Sophie's real face on the internet, I laughed so hard at the difference. Horrible, Mom! You knew and still abandoned us? I lost my savings too.
Horrible? Have you already forgotten what you have done to me? Listening to them act as if they were the victims, all I could do was shaking my head. Ignoring me as if I didn't exist, not responding when I spoke to you, throwing away the meals I made. At the end, you chose to divorce. You were the ones who went away first. Never call me Mom again. What? You're still mad? I'm sorry, let's make up. We're family, right? We're strangers now. So I don't care. This is the end you chose. Take responsibility for your own choices. When I rejected them, my son begged even more. Don't say that. I'm your son, right? Help me, at least.
What? That's not fair, Frederick. Trying to save yourself? It's Dad's fault for being tricked in the first place. There's a good investment, we'll share the profits, how could you not suspect that? You were happy to become rich and handed over all your savings too.
I was tired of hearing their endless and unpleasant bickering. Our family was destroyed by a single scam artist. If my ex-husband hadn't cheated, maybe we would still be a happy family now. But it's too late.
It's a waste of time. Can you leave?
As I tried to close the front door, my ex-husband begged me.
Wait! Please, let's start over. Your parents are farmers, right? So even if we have no money, we won't starve.
Are you saying you want to reconcile with me for food?
No, it's not like that. I need you. I know it's too late, but forgive me. I won't do it again.
His obvious excuses only made me sigh. Such men will surely repeat the same mistakes. I decided to put an end to it.
Wasting food brings punishment. I've seen many like you suffering.
What are you talking about all of a sudden?
It's my parents' teaching. You threw away the vegetables they lovingly grew without even eating them. Understand? I'm angry. I will never forgive you. Don't ever show your face to me again.
With that, I closed the door.
Wait! Mom, forgive me!
They kept making a scene at the front door, causing a neighborhood disturbance, so I called the police to take them away. Later, I heard that my ex-husband lost all his money and was fired for embezzling company funds. My son dropped out of high school and is working, but he can't find a good job. The marriage scam artist was recently arrested, according to the news. He was a middle-aged man, nothing like the beautiful woman, and many men were deceived on social media. As for me, I'm helping out on my parents' farm, living a stress-free and healthy life. I'm soon going to be introduced to a man of my age who's also a farmer in the same area. Next time, I want to build a happy family. One day, as the end of the year was approaching, I received a panicked call from my son's stepdaughter, Aurora, urging me to come to their house immediately. I drove to my son's house, a place I hadn't visited for a while. Just then, Grace?
Grandma!
My granddaughter Grace, sitting on the concrete steps of the entrance, was hugging her knees, looking cold in her school tracksuit.
What's going on? Why are you out here in such light clothing? And where are your mom and dad?
They went on an overseas trip with my sister.
What? Anyway, get in the car. You're freezing.
In a rush, I got Grace in the car and bought her a warm drink at the first grocery store I saw. Later, when I met with Aurora at my house, I was infuriated by what my son and his wife had done. These children relied on me, so I felt a sense of duty to help them.
Aurora, do you have the keys? To their house?
Yes.
Then let's go now. And just take what's important. What are we going to do, Grandma?
I smiled.
We don't need that house anymore, do we?
My name is Arya, 64 years old. I lost my husband 2 years ago and now live alone. Still, my days are fairly busy. Because I'm wrapped up in managing what my husband had left behind. When I married 40 years ago, my in-laws were what you might call an old family in the countryside. I never imagined I'd end up managing this large house. My family home was within a train ride to the city center. Yes, my husband was my college classmate. We got married right after graduation. I moved to this unfamiliar countryside, relying solely on him. I was surprised to see my husband, who until then had been a mere student like myself, suddenly being treated as the son and heir of a prominent local family. Karen, my mother-in-law at the time, thoroughly instilled in me the importance of treating one's husband with due respect. Her words were the law in this area, and although it was frustrating, I understood and complied. Thanks to that, even now, with no one left, I'm still treated with a certain respect as the manager of this house and land. I got married at a time when ordinary people were yearning to move out to the city center. Back then, I was seen as an oddity for coming all the way to the countryside. Karen probably gave me strict training to quickly dispel such views from the locals. And then, we had a child soon after our marriage. It was a boy, and he was celebrated by the people around us as the heir, including Karen herself. However, after having our son, my health deteriorated, leading to a less intimate marital life. At the end of the day, he was our only child. How I've regretted that over the years. But now that my son is married and my in-laws and my husband are gone, I am the one who manages this house and land. I've been left with a substantial passive income, enough to comfortably maintain this spacious home and live freely. Of course, a certain level of knowledge and the utilization of skilled individuals are essential for its upkeep. Thanks to the foundation laid by Karen and my efforts to keep up with the papers even after college, I've managed to avoid falling prey to the deceit of relatives and associated parties who frequent the premises. There are times, even at this age, when I must learn new things, but that adds a sense of vibrancy to life. There was one reason why I needed to work hard and manage everything like this. My husband left all his assets to me in his will. Why? It was due to the nature of our son, Thomas. Under normal circumstances, the inheritance would have been equally divided between myself and Thomas. However, my husband chose not to do this. He had expressed his concerns several years before passing. If I leave him half of this house now, it will go to ruins. I want you to see if Thomas can change for the better. I thought about those words as his last will and testament. Because Thomas had gotten married to his second wife. Thomas had been with his first wife, Victoria, for a little over 10 years. But he got married again just 6 months after Victoria had passed away from an illness. He married the woman he had been having an affair with. My husband, who had been out of shape, seemed astonished by what was really going on with his son, who had seemed to be doing so well. This only served to worsen his condition. Thomas was an adult and married. Up until then, I saw him as an heir with no particular problems. Yet, I confess, there might have been a tendency to overly indulge him as our only heir. It was not just me, but everyone in the family. He was academically competent, progressing from a reputable high school to college. Although he had the option of attending a college in the city, he chose to remain local. After graduation, he got a job at an acquaintance's company. And then he married a local girl. That's when Thomas expressed his desire to get his own home and live independently. We constructed a house on a piece of land we owned for the young couple. Thomas and his wife Victoria got along very well. However, after the birth of their daughter Grace, Victoria's health began to deteriorate. The doctors declared she couldn't have any more children. It reminded me of my own experiences, so I did what I could to help her. Her biological mother frequently visited her too. We also arranged for babysitters and housekeepers. For a time, Victoria's health seemed to get better. But about a decade later, she was diagnosed with cancer. Looking back, Victoria was an incredibly resilient woman. She probably felt guilty for the trouble her health issues caused shortly after their marriage. That's likely why she endured so much during this time. Unfortunately, by the time the cancer was discovered, it was already too late. With our granddaughter Grace clinging to her, Victoria passed away far too young. During this time, I felt sorrow for various reasons. The most significant reason was how much I thought of Victoria as my own daughter. I also dearly loved my granddaughter, Grace. It pained me that she lost her mother. But there was another major issue weighing heavily on my heart. While Victoria was receiving medical treatment every weekend, Thomas already had a mistress. Perhaps that's why he hardly ever visited her. After Victoria's death, Thomas remarried in less than 6 months. His new wife, Olivia, was originally a woman from the club Thomas frequented. Surprisingly, by that time, they had already been in a relationship for over 5 years. Victoria's diary, which she left behind for me, was filled with detailed accounts of the days Thomas stopped coming home. Maybe she intended to use it as evidence for a divorce one day. We'll never know now. The new wife, Olivia, was 2 years older than Thomas. She moved into the house we had built without hesitation with her daughter, Aurora, who was 6 years older than Grace. Of course, I was opposed to this marriage. Thomas had been unfaithful to Victoria and had an affair with a woman in the nightlife business for a long time. He rarely bothered to visit his sick wife, and he even remarried soon after she was gone. I never imagined my son could be so heartless. But Thomas said, "I married the woman you set me up with, Mom. Haven't I fulfilled my duty?" Besides, Victoria wasn't perfect either. She fell ill before bearing a male heir. What was the point of marrying her? I couldn't even enjoy a good marital life with her. I had to get out and blow off steam, or else it would have affected my work. I had always known Thomas was cold towards Victoria. But this was beyond cruel. I blamed myself, wondering where it all went wrong with Thomas. Had we spoiled him too much, being our only son? Certainly, both my husband and I had done so. And the people surrounding us had pampered him as the only son of a prestigious family. But still, we had taught him right from wrong when he was young. With these thoughts, I had stayed away from my son's household for a while. It was also because of how busy I was following my husband's death. They would only visit at Christmas. But that was a mistake. It happened one day towards the end of the year. The temperature fluctuated wildly even into December, with days warm enough to make you sweat after only moving around a little, followed by sudden freezing winds. It was not easy for an aging person like myself. Nevertheless, it was the end of the year. While I was in the middle of dealing with reports from various sources, my private mobile phone suddenly rang. Who could it be? It was an unfamiliar number. But it was my private phone. Not many people knew this number. I decided to answer. "Excuse me, are you Grace's grandmother?" It was a young woman's voice. "Grace's, yes, I am. And you are?" "I'm sorry for the sudden call. I'm Aurora." It was Olivia's daughter. Why was she contacting me? "I don't have much time, so let me just say this. Could you please come to our house right away?" Where was she calling from? The background noise was quite loud.
Excuse me? What's going on?
I understand it's hard to earn your trust, seeing as I'm the one calling you. But there's no time. I'll explain later. I'm sorry.
With that, Aurora ended the call. It felt like I was being skillfully manipulated, but fortunately, I had a bit of time to spare. As I hurried outside to get my car, a cold, dry breeze brushed against my cheeks. I suddenly remembered that today was colder than yesterday. I drove to my son's house, a place I hadn't visited for some time, and parked in the driveway. It had enough room for 4 cars, but there were only 2. Were Thomas and the others there? With that thought, I got out of the car and headed towards the entrance. Just then, "Grace?"
Grandma!
I rushed over to her. Grace was sitting on the concrete steps of the entrance, hugging her knees and looking cold in her school tracksuit.
What's going on? Why are you out here in such light clothing? And where are your mom and dad?
They went on an overseas trip with my sister.
What?
I felt something was off when I heard those words.
Anyway, get in the car. You're freezing.
In a rush, I got Grace into the car and bought her a warm drink from the first grocery store I saw. She must have been really cold. She carefully warmed her hands before slowly opening the lid and taking a sip. I wanted to ask her immediately what had happened, but decided it was more important to drive safely back home. Once home, I took Grace to the living room. I called the housekeeper on the way and asked for 2 warm cups of tea and some snacks. The moment we entered the room and Grace felt the warmth, she looked relieved, and that gave me a really bad feeling.
Feeling better?
Yeah. Her response and her whole demeanor seemed younger than I remembered. She should be a growing girl at the age of 14. Even when she cried by her mother's sickbed, her wrists seemed to have more flesh on them. Wrists, hands?
Grace, what happened here?
Upon closer inspection, Grace's hands had severe chapping. I remember kids sometimes had that when I was young, but it's not something you see often nowadays. Oh, this started last year. It looks painful. Are you using any cream? No. I don't have any cream. I think it's from using hot water for bathing, washing dishes, and laundry.
What? No housekeeper lately?
Dad made her leave. Said it costs too much, so he told me to take on her job.
What about your mom? Olivia?
She's busy with lots of stuff, and Dad doesn't like it if her hands get rough.
And your stepsister?
My sister is. I stopped her.
Did they tell you to call her that?
Grace nodded silently. Dad told me to call her that when we're outside. At home, I call her Aurora. I prefer that too. All right, then let's go with that. Okay. And Grandma, that person isn't my mom. She told me to call her Olivia. I don't want to, but if I don't, she hits me. Grace said with a bitter smile. What does that mean? What had been going on in that household while I had been staying away? Eventually, after eating about half of the cake brought to her, Grace suddenly seemed to remember something. She reached into the pocket of her tracksuit and pulled out a mobile phone. It looked like the kind a grade schooler would have. Grace used it and began typing a message.
What are you doing?
Aurora told me to message her when you arrived, Grandma.
She did.
Yes. Aurora bought me this phone. Really? What about your previous one? Dad took it away not long after he remarried. That person told him it was too early for me to have one. That person. She must be referring to Olivia.
Didn't your dad say anything?
Grace shrugged her shoulders and frowned. Dad doesn't know anything about me. I couldn't get in touch with my friends for a while, so Aurora bought me this phone, saying she's sorry it's not the latest model. She also told me to make sure she'll never find it.
Make sure she'll never find it.
Who is she? It's Olivia, who had taken away the previous phone. Oh, Grandma. Aurora messaged back. She's on her way here from the airport. Really? Wasn't she supposed to be on a trip abroad? She said she'd pretend to go and come back, so she told me to wait. She said she'd slip away somehow. What exactly was going on between these two? At that moment, all I could do was wait. Aurora arrived at our house 3 hours later, after taking multiple buses. It's a provincial city, after all. Even if she came straight from the nearest airport, it would take a considerable amount of time. I'm sorry, Arya. Thank you for picking up Grace after such a short and sudden call. Aurora apologized deeply. Aurora. Her tone was clear and firm. Her gaze was unwavering. I thought to myself that although this girl looked flashy like Olivia, she seemed well-grounded.
So what's with those two? Going on a trip abroad? They had been talking about going with the three of us for a while. But I wasn't sure what would happen there, so I pretended to get sick to get away. They planned to spend 3 weeks abroad, going all the way from Italy to the UK.
3 weeks?
What about their jobs?
This story seemed even darker than I had anticipated.
And it seems like my mother was planning to hand me over to that man during this trip.
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said just now. That man had his eyes on both my mother and I from the beginning.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, it's true, Grandma.
Grace interjected, clenching her fist and sitting next to Aurora.
I saw Dad insisting Aurora join him when I was done cleaning the bath many times. She always managed to brush it off as a harsh joke, but Dad would click his tongue and yell at me to go away when I was wandering around nearby.
No, it's because of Grace that it didn't get any worse than that. I was always worried that Grace would get hurt. But I can't imagine what would have happened if she wasn't there. What on earth was going on? My son. How far has he corrupted? I pondered for a moment in front of the two girls. The way they protected each other. It seemed that they got along well. No, it was more than that. They were like comrades against a common enemy.
So, how do you get by? Grace, you said earlier that Olivia told you to call her by her name, right?
Yes. My mother started dating him for the money and even stayed with him through marriage. I've seen that man coming over to our house since high school. I've noticed the way he gradually started looking at me inappropriately. And now, because we live in the same house, he's getting cocky. Oh, how I hate it. Aurora said this while hugging herself, clearly disgusted. But I'm grateful for being allowed to continue my studies. I've been going to college and working part-time, trying to stay away from home as much as possible. Though, I thought about moving out. Aurora stayed because of me. Grace interjected. Even today. Those two left me alone without giving me a key or any money, telling me to go somewhere. And in that tracksuit. The wind would make her feel even colder. The sight of her waiting there, hugging her knees. I waited because Aurora told me to. Until those two boarded the plane and it was clear they weren't coming back.
So, that's why you called?
Yes. I was right by their side until just before their boarding time. But if I had left Grace alone, she would have caught a cold. So I made a call when they weren't looking. I knew she was still cold, though. I'm sorry. Honestly, they could have contacted me earlier, but I guess these young girls wanted to make sure those two were definitely abroad before reaching out. And now that they're relying on me, I must do what I can for these girls.
Aurora, do you have the keys? To their house?
Yes.
Then let's go now.
And just take what's important.
What are we going to do, Grandma?
I smiled.
We don't need that house anymore, do we?
And then, we were 3 weeks into the new year. The new year had begun and people started going back to school and work. Just then, 2 people came storming into my house, dragging suitcases.
Mom! What was that all about?
Thomas yelled at me right away. Apparently, he had gone back home without giving any thought. And then he saw it. There was nothing left there. Well, that was my property. I thought it was useless, so I had it demolished and the land sold. Oh, your belongings are in this storage room. Right after that incident, I had contacted a real estate agent and a demolition company I knew well. When they learned of the situation, they immediately took me up on my offer. I tossed the keys to the storage room at Thomas. The 2 of them missed, and a small clang echoed in the entrance.
Don't mess with me, Mom! That was my house!
Oh, why would you think that?
Huh?
What do you mean? Thomas, you seem to be mistaken. That house was built for you, but it was registered under me and my husband. And now, it's mine. What does it matter what I do with it? What about my daughters? What did you do with them? Your daughters? You're one to talk, Olivia. I sneered. Then, please, come in. I gestured for the 2 to come inside.
What? Not the living room?
I led them silently. Our destination was the spacious hall in the back. Thank you for waiting. I opened the door after walking down the central corridor. There were a dozen or so people waiting in the room. But the first people that caught the eyes of the 2 behind me were
Grace? Aurora?
My granddaughters were sitting next to the chair I was about to take.
Aurora, why did you ignore my calls? Grace, you ratted us out to Mom. When did you become so cunning?
Thomas and Olivia, perhaps in a fit of anger, with red faces, tried to approach the girls, but they were restrained by the people in the room and forced to sit opposite us. Still looking at us breathlessly, they didn't seem to notice the people around us. Now that everyone is here, let's begin. I looked around at everyone and spoke. Let's proceed, everyone. Thank you for your cooperation. Shall we begin with you? Thank you. Hey Thomas, tough break coming back from your long vacation. But there's no going forward from here. At that voice, Thomas was startled and turned to his left. Sir! The managing director spoke in a calm voice, but his eyes weren't smiling. I never thought you'd actually apply for a 3-week vacation. I hoped you'd quit such bad habits by now. Thomas shrank under the low, commanding voice. He's always been arrogant towards his inferiors, but weak to those above him. He's been like that since childhood.
But until now, you have approved.
Look, Thomas. What do you think your value is?
What?
If you don't know, let me tell you. Your only value to our company is your status as the heir to this prestigious family. Thomas gritted his teeth. But it seems that doesn't mean anything anymore.
What do you mean?
The managing director then turned to me. Thomas. I looked straight at my son. His gaze visibly faltered. I was going to announce to everyone here today the contents of the will I wrote the other day in the presence of your lawyers.
A will?
Yes, I had to write it in advance, right? Otherwise, my inheritance would go to you, wouldn't it?
Mom?
I've already stored it in a safe place. It's simple. In the event of my passing, all of my inheritance will go to Grace. Thomas's jaw dropped in shock. Then, after a few seconds,
No, I must have heard something strange. It's odd, maybe my ears haven't adjusted from the flight?
No. Arya hasn't said anything strange. Our family lawyer interjected. The previous head of the family excluded Thomas as the heir because of his behavior and spending at that time. I remember Arya's words well.
Yes, I remember that time.
Only now you remember? I shook my head in disbelief. Then the company's managing director took over the conversation, picking up where the lawyer and I left off. It seems Arya has decided to completely strip you of your inheritance rights. That means there's no reason for us to treat you specially anymore.
But how can?
What mattered to our company was the connection with this region's large landowning family, not your personal capabilities. Now, what to do next? The managing director looked at me. I nodded slightly. Please proceed as you see fit. Thank you. Thomas, the entire company knows you applied for a 3-week vacation for a mere trip. The higher-ups are planning your demotion and reassignment. Be grateful that's all you're going to get. Thomas collapsed on the spot as if all his strength had left him.
That's ridiculous.
At that moment, Olivia leaned forward.
Arya, if Grace is the heir, what about Aurora? Is Aurora different?
Aurora? Why would you think that?
She's Thomas's child too, isn't she? Isn't Aurora sitting next to Arya for that reason?
Stop the unsightly act, Mother. Aurora sharply cut in. Unsightly? I'm not related to this family by a single drop of blood. How could a complete stranger claim any rights here? Are you stupid? How dare you speak to your mother that way? I've been leaving messages asking when you'd rejoin our trip, and you didn't reply at all. That's right. We'd been looking forward to it. Thomas even chimed in. Looking forward to it. Aurora took out her mobile phone.
Excuse me, everyone. Could you listen to this for a moment?
The room buzzed with curiosity.
Come on, Aurora, won't you join me in the bath today?
I'm sorry, I have a part-time job now.
What? Can't you just do as I say?
A dull thump, probably the sound of Thomas slapping the washing machine.
Stop it, Dad. Aurora doesn't like it. Shut up.
There was a noise along with Grace's voice.
Grace!
Aurora, you have a part-time job, right? Go, hurry. Thank you. There were some footsteps, then more sounds in the background. Ah, so what the two told me was just a fraction of the whole story.
What's this? That's Thomas's voice, isn't it?
Everyone in the room looked at Aurora, Grace, and Thomas in turn with somber expressions. Aurora stopped the recording and stated firmly,
"This is just part of it. I constantly felt danger like this. And Grace, being forced to clean the bathrooms and toilets, helped me on such occasions. Not just this time. She always let me know when he was around. How could she do that?"
Grace silently glared at Olivia, then took out her own mobile phone.
"What? I took your phone away."
Olivia, you just said you took it away? I posed the question.
In this day and age, even elementary school kids need mobile phones, and you took one from Grace, a middle schooler?
Mom, it's part of her education, right?
That's right. She doesn't need the latest model. Then at least give her a phone with basic functions. Nowadays, even going out with friends seems to require exchanging messages, and you get news from school too, right? Do you two even pay attention to notices from her school? Huh? I'm busy, you know. Do I look like I have time to attend her school events? What keeps you so busy?
Aurora chuckled.
What's that, Aurora? Mocking your parent like that.
Well, your busy has always been about deceiving men, hasn't it?
What?
Thomas's gaze turned towards Olivia.
Sorry to keep you waiting. John, please come in.
Aurora called out loudly. The door opened, revealing a man slightly younger than Thomas and his wife, and another man in a suit.
What?
Olivia's expression changed drastically.
It's been a while, Olivia. I never thought you'd end up in such a place. After all, you cost me everything. What are you doing here?
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce John. He's one of the victims this woman swindled money from in the past. Oh, Aurora. You said one, do you mean there are more? I asked Aurora. Yes.
This woman always had men coming and going, but John was the most tragic case, even though he was the most decent among them.
Since you're here, please tell us everything about this woman.
I see. John, what did Olivia do to you? Marriage fraud and theft.
The room buzzed at those words.
What are you talking about? You gave me that money voluntarily. I was under the impression that we were going to open a store together as a family, that's why I agreed.
John glared at Olivia, his gaze filled with contempt.
We needed some cash for a deposit on a nice property we had found back then, so I withdrew all my savings and handed the cash to this woman. But the very next day, she disappeared. Is there any proof?
Aurora operated her phone and played another audio clip.
Come on, let's go. What's this all of a sudden? We've earned plenty of cash from John, so, you know, we need to move to another town quickly.
Olivia slammed her hand on the table.
How did you even get that? Of course I did. I was always preparing to drag you down to hell. How dare you say such things to your mother? Huh? I can no longer consider you as my mother. You beat me up and skipped my meals just because you thought some guy you'd been dating flirted with me. And this trip, you were planning to set me up with your husband, right? I gave birth to you. I have the right to do whatever I want. Sure, it seems the term child abuse doesn't exist in your world.
At that moment, the man behind John stood up.
So, you have more hidden crimes, it seems.
The man pulled out a police badge. Olivia leaped back in shock upon seeing it.
Why are the police here? You really are clueless. John is suing you for fraud and theft. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Aurora found me and set up this meeting.
Olivia, you should give up now.
I can testify in any amount of detail of the fraud, theft, and child abuse against me. There are things that you did to me that I can't talk about here.
I heard Grace swallow nervously. So that's why Aurora wanted to protect Grace from experiencing what she did.
I'll testify about everything that happened to me, no matter how small. It's disgusting to even recall,
but if it puts you behind bars, it's worth it. What a strong girl. My son grew up to be an awful man, and he fell for a terrible woman, but I'm glad I got to meet Aurora. After that, the two got divorced. It sounds silly, but it was really when the money ran out that the relationship ended. When Thomas visited Olivia at the police station, they just hurled insults at each other. Yes, Olivia's deeds gradually came to light with the audio data and photos Aurora had been collecting, and more crimes surfaced. The child abuse Aurora suffered was as horrid as the police suspected, so they told me after their interviews. Hearing that, I resolved to do anything I could for Aurora. But she insisted she just needed help finding a job after graduation. So, I decided to arrange an excellent job for her. Thomas was demoted and transferred at once, as the managing director had said. To a regional branch, no less. On top of that, he became a section manager. It seems it was too difficult to demote him from a head of department to a regular employee. So, they placed him where he could do the least harm. In a region he had never been. In the end, it was this land of ours which we had protected that ruined my son. As a mother, all I can hope for is that he becomes somewhat decent in the outside world. Not that I expect much. As for us, the sound of children every day is such a joy. Now, this spacious house is home to me, my granddaughter, and her stepsister. The job I arranged for Aurora is to work alongside Grace, who will eventually inherit this house, serving as her assistant. This way, there is no dependency.
If Arya says it's necessary, I'll acquire any qualifications needed.
With such a strong girl by her side, I'm confident that Grace's future is secure. However, no matter how resilient Aurora is, there might be times when the past abuse haunts her. For the time being, I'll support these two. I need to remain in good health in order to do so. Thomas became the black sheep of this family because I was reluctant to abandon my own son. And there was also that parasitic woman. From now on, I want these girls, who worked so hard to eliminate them, to enjoy the life that they deserve for their age.
That day, I guess I was pretty worn out from everything, because after I put my daughter Nicola to bed in her crib, I went to my bedroom and fell asleep instantly. A few hours must have passed when I suddenly woke up. It was Nicola's crying in the night that did it. Still half asleep, I checked the time on my mobile phone. 1 a.m. Huh. Good thing I got a little nap today. I dragged my tired body up, planning to go to the living room and soothe Nicola. Just then, I heard a shouting voice. "Shut up! Be quiet!" For a moment, I couldn't tell where the voice was coming from. I thought maybe my mother-in-law, Jamie, was yelling at me from her room. So I said, "Yes, I'm coming to soothe her now," and opened the living room door. There, right in front of me, was Jamie, standing over the crib, glaring at Nicola. And the next moment, "Enough already!" She slapped Nicola's face. "What are you doing?" I yelled louder than I ever had before. Jamie looked surprised for a second. "Why didn't you soothe her sooner? This child is so noisy!" Then she yelled back. In a panic, I rushed over to the crib and lifted Nicola to protect her from Jamie. "I can't believe this! Hitting a baby?" My name is Candace, a 28-year-old housewife. I used to be an office worker, but I'm currently on maternity leave, focusing on housework and childcare. My husband Miles and I started living with Jamie, my mother-in-law, about a year ago. With Miles's job being demanding and him rarely home, and because he was worried about leaving me alone while I was pregnant, and also feeling sorry for Jamie being alone since my father-in-law Willis passed away 2 years ago, we decided to move in with her. At first, living together went well, but gradually Jamie started showing her true colors, and honestly, I was having a hard time. "Candace, you're really slow at housework, aren't you? Can't you make better food?" "I'm sorry." Jamie harassed me every chance she got. When Willis was still alive, I didn't have any issues when visiting my in-laws' house, so I didn't particularly dislike Jamie back then. However, after Willis passed away and we started living together, Jamie became an unbearably selfish and rude presence in my life. "Hurry up with the housework! You're really useless, you know. Slow, ugly." Jamie keeps insulting me like this. The last part was just mean and had nothing to do with housework. Since I'm pregnant, it's natural for me to be slow with chores. But Jamie doesn't seem to care about that. She just seems desperate to harass me. As for Miles, he's mostly away on business trips and doesn't get home until midnight, even when he's not traveling. So I have to spend most of my days with Jamie. I kept hoping that things would change since the baby was born. Even Jamie, rough as she is, would surely become kinder and gentler living with her grandchild. I was desperately holding on to that hope. I do consult Miles about it on WhatsApp, keeping it to a level that won't trouble his work, and he does reply with, "I'm really sorry. I wish I could be there for you during tough times." He also takes care to admonish Jamie when they meet. Knowing that Miles is on my side gives me a little relief. That's why I could bear being scolded by Jamie for not doing the housework well enough while pregnant. Later, I safely gave birth to a baby, a healthy baby girl. Miles, bless him, managed to get permission from his company, saying, "The baby is being born." He left work early and rushed to the hospital just before I gave birth. When he held our newborn daughter, "She's really cute, like an angel," and he looked so happy and said, "I was happy too, having given birth to the child of the man I love." I reported the birth of our healthy baby girl to Jamie through WhatsApp. I thought she might come to visit in the hospital since we lived together, but Jamie didn't show up. She didn't even reply on WhatsApp. Could it be that she's not interested in her granddaughter? I started to feel a cold sweat. Will this harassment continue even now? As I was dreading that thought, the door to my hospital room opened. "Candace, how are you feeling?" "Lila. Wow, what a cute baby! It's a girl, right? She's going to be beautiful." It was my sister-in-law, Lila, who came to visit. Lila is very kind and cheerful, and she's always been good to me. I've always loved Lila. She's already married and has children, so I had decided to consult her about parenting. "What's her name?" Miles and I decided to name her Nicola. "Oh, that's a nice name. Wait, hasn't Mom come?" "No, I did contact her, but she ignored the red receipt." "Oh, I see. She's really a pain sometimes, isn't she? Unpredictable and lacking common sense." "Well, yeah." Lila is straightforward, and I've always appreciated that about her. She once told me, "If you ever have a problem living with Mom, feel free to vent to me." That really saved me. So I used to honestly complain to Lila when things got really tough. Lila understood Jamie's difficult nature, so she knew that if she scolded Jamie based on what I told her, Jamie would end up taking it out on me. That's why she wouldn't admonish Jamie unless it was really necessary. At that time, just being able to vent was enough to relieve my stress. I had no idea things would get harder after Nicola was born. "Jamie, I'm back." When I got discharged from the hospital and returned home with Nicola, Jamie didn't mention Nicola at all. "Hurry up and clean," she said. I couldn't believe it. It was as if she completely ignored Nicola's existence. Despite feeling upset, I put Nicola in her crib and started cleaning. About 5 minutes later, Jamie started yelling, "Candace, come here!" "Yes, what is it?" "That baby is noisy. Do something about her crying." "I'm sorry." Again, I couldn't believe it. Referring to her as that baby as if she's a nuisance, and telling me to do something about her crying. Jamie continued to treat Nicola poorly. "The baby is crying! It stinks! Change your diaper now! The crib is in the way! Shut up, baby!" Jamie shouted these things. Each time Jamie yelled, Nicola would cry louder in fright, which made Jamie even angrier. It was a very uncomfortable atmosphere for Nicola and me. "Jamie, her name is Nicola. Can you please call her by her name?" "Shut up! Don't tell me what to do. You're her mother, so it's your job to take care of her. Make sure I'm comfortable. Look, she's crying again." Nicola had started crying because Jamie yelled. I had just put her to bed. I had to stop my chores and go soothe Nicola. And if that delays the housework, she'll get mad about that too. When I put Nicola back to bed and resumed my chores, Jamie said, "This is really in the way. Takes up so much space." and kicked the crib. The crib shook and Nicola woke up crying again. "What are you doing, Jamie?" "Shut up! It's your fault for putting such a big thing here!" "But it was you who told us to put the bed in the living room because it's noisy when she cries at night in our room." "Are you complaining to me now? Stop arguing and soothe that noisy child." That noisy child. This person is really the worst. I had no choice but to do my chores while holding Nicola. Trying to balance housework and childcare without angering Jamie was really tough, and I was gradually getting exhausted. If I focused too much on childcare, "You're really slow at housework," I'd be scolded. And if I focused on chores, "The child is noisy, can't you raise her properly?" I'd be berated for parenting. Miles was away on a business trip for about 2 months and wasn't home. I couldn't bear it and tried consulting him over WhatsApp and phone, but he seemed busy and couldn't talk long. Miles apologized many times, saying, "I'm really sorry for the hard times." But I felt guilty making him apologize when he was working so hard for our family. Then something unbelievable happened. That day, maybe because I was so tired, I fell asleep as soon as I put Nicola in her crib and went to my bedroom. A few hours must have passed when I suddenly woke up. It was Nicola's crying in the night that did it. Still half asleep, I checked the time on my mobile phone. 1 a.m. Good thing I got a little nap today. I dragged my tired body up, planning to go to the living room and soothe Nicola. Just then, I heard a shouting voice. "Shut up! Be quiet!" For a moment, I couldn't tell where the voice was coming from. I thought maybe Jamie was yelling at me from her room, so I said, "Yes, I'm coming to soothe her now," and opened the living room door. There, right in front of me, was Jamie, standing over the crib, glaring at Nicola. And the next moment, "Enough already!" She slapped Nicola's face. "Ew, what are you doing?" I yelled louder than I ever had before. Jamie looked surprised for a second. "Why didn't you soothe her sooner? She's so noisy, this child." Then she yelled back. In a panic, I rushed over to the crib and lifted Nicola to protect her from Jamie. I can't believe this! Hitting a baby? Could this person really be human? Hitting a 3-month-old baby? Nicola was crying louder than I had ever heard before, and her face had turned red. I immediately called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor examined Nicola. He said her face was red, but there was no worry about bruises or injuries, which relieved me. I almost collapsed on the spot. "What happened? Did you drop her on the floor or something?" The doctor asked. I explained the situation to the doctor. Right then, Lila entered the room. "Candace, is Nicola okay?" "Oh, Lila." In my panic, I had called Lila while on the ambulance. Miles was on a business trip and couldn't come immediately, so I called Lila, despite it being the middle of the night. Lila explained to the doctor about Jamie hitting Nicola. The doctor was speechless, and Lila was shaking with anger. The next day, I went home with Lila. I deliberately entered the house alone. Jamie acted as if nothing happened, harassing me as usual. "You're late. Hurry up and make breakfast. You missed taking out the trash because you came home in the morning. You really can't do housework." "Enough already. Did you forget what happened yesterday? You hit a 3-month-old baby, remember? How can you act so normally? First, apologize for yesterday." Jamie's face turned red with anger. "What? Why should I apologize? That child was the noisy one. I just slapped her because she wouldn't listen. It's a part of discipline. I thought she wouldn't be quiet otherwise." "That's not discipline. It's just violence." "Enough so noisy. Just do your chores already." I was astounded. "So you don't regret it at all? Don't even think you did anything wrong. Lila, please come in." Lila entered the living room as I called her. "Why is Lila here?" "Mom, what are you doing? I can't believe you did such a thing." "No, that's, Jamie was flustered by Lila's arrival. "Mom, you do realize that what you did is legally punishable, right?" Jamie's face turned pale. "Lila, you're not going to sue your own mother, are you?" The one who's going to sue is Candace. I'll just be her lawyer. But wait! It was just a part of her education. Who would agree that hitting a baby is education? This is a case of assault. No matter how much Jamie tried to justify, such an act could never be excused. I'll definitely sue you. Be prepared, I told Jamie. Then Jamie began to cry quietly. I'm sorry, Candace. I always lose control when I get angry and end up regretting it later. I've always been depressed and regretful about how I treated you and Nicola. I truly am sorry for what happened. Why did I raise my hand to her? I always wanted a boy for the eldest grandson. It was also Willis's wish. Willis's wish? It might be an old-fashioned thought, but we always hoped for a boy to carry on the family line, and when a girl was born instead, I was happy about the birth of a granddaughter, but also felt like I failed to fulfill a promise to Willis. And every time I got angry, I couldn't control myself. I'm really sorry. Jamie continued speaking through her tears. Please, Candace, change me. I'll do anything. Jamie said this and then deeply apologized. Jamie, please calm down. Let's talk properly first. No, I've done something terrible. No amount of apologies will ever be enough. Jamie kept apologizing repeatedly. I felt my heart wavering and almost forgave Jamie. Jamie, that's when Lila spoke up. Don't take her seriously, Candace. Mom always pretends to be deeply remorseful like this when she's cornered, just to end criticism against her. Huh? She did the same when Dad found out about her affair. He forgave her because he fell for her act, but her tears dried up immediately afterward. This is probably just an act too, right? You can't fool me. Lila's observation made Jamie falter. What are you saying, Lila? Looking closely, Jamie's tears, which were flowing heavily just a moment ago, had already dried up. It was likely fake crying. Jamie, I can't forgive you anymore. How twisted can you be to try to weasel out of what you've done? Wait a minute, I'm not trying to escape anything! Okay, I understand, but we've already decided to take legal action. As I said that, Jamie's face turned red with anger. Don't joke with me! Why should I be subjected to this by a daughter-in-law like you? How insolent! Just then, the sound of the house key turning was heard. Candace, is Nicola safe? Miles, why are you here? I had only contacted him on WhatsApp. I thought Miles couldn't come since he was on a business trip. I called him several times in the middle of the night. Then he drove straight here. Miles had been driving since 3 a.m. and arrived this morning. I didn't know Miles was coming, too. Mom, cut it out. I've been hearing about your harassment from Candace. And I've been warning you every time, haven't I? And now you've gone and hit my precious Nicola? I'll never forgive you for this. Miles, even you're blaming me? How cruel, after I raised you and Lila. What are you talking about? You always left us with Aunt to play around. Our memories are filled with the meals Aunt cooked, not you. Mom, just give it up. Besides, I think the doctor already reported it yesterday. Huh? The hospital knows Mom hit her, so I think it's just a matter of time before the police come. No! Wait, you're okay with your mother being arrested? I'd rather not have someone who hits a 3-month-old baby around. No matter what you say, Mom, you have no one on your side now. Jamie finally seemed to understand her situation, pale-faced and slumped. Soon, the police arrived and Jamie was arrested. As a first-time offender, she received a suspended sentence, but Miles and Lila cut ties with her and issued restraining orders against her. Miles moved out of the in-laws' house with me and Nicola and rented an apartment. While looking for a place, we stayed briefly with Lila, which was a great help. Candace, I'm really sorry for everything. I'll take a parental leave. If I can't get it, I'll change departments or even jobs to ensure your and Nicola's safety. I was so happy to hear Miles say that. His company had some issues with the working environment, and he couldn't get parental leave, so he resigned and found another job. Now he comes home on time, helps with Nicola and the housework. We live in a high-rise near Lila's family, often gathering for meals or enjoying barbecues. I don't know what's become of Jamie, but I heard from neighbors that after her arrest, she's become completely isolated and doesn't go out anymore. Prideful Jamie probably can't bear being known as someone who did such terrible things. Well, it doesn't matter to me anymore, and she doesn't know where we moved. So there's no chance of meeting or her showing up unexpectedly. I plan to live happily, supporting each other as a family with Miles, Nicola, and Lila's family.
My name is Charlotte. I'm currently 23, living with my family while looking for a job. Today, my mother seems a little on edge as my older brother Henry is bringing his girlfriend home. She's been restless all day, cleaning every corner of the house. Now it's also making me a bit anxious. We lost our father when we were young, so it's just been us and our mother. Whenever she smiles at my father's picture on the mantelpiece, it makes me feel warm inside. I wonder what she's like. Apparently, she's a very sweet girl. Just then, the doorbell rang. My mother goes to greet them, and Henry and his girlfriend entered our house. Henry's girlfriend is a striking beauty, and he introduces her, blushing slightly. Nice to meet you. I'm Emmy. Our mother is visibly excited about Henry bringing such a beautiful woman home. We all sit down and start making small talk over tea. What do you do, Charlotte? At the moment, nothing. I'm job hunting. For a moment, I felt as if Emmy glared at me for a split second. When my mother left her seat to refill our teacups and Henry went to the restroom, we were left alone. I sensed Emmy scan me from my head to toe, like she was measuring my worth. Feeling the tense atmosphere, I thought of lightening the mood with a different topic. I heard you've never worked before. Is that true? Don't you feel embarrassed to be living off your mother at 23? Are you not planning to work? How do you even support yourself now? She bombarded me with questions before I could even change the subject. Seems like her sharp gaze that I sensed earlier wasn't just my imagination. She must be worried about me being jobless. She's considering getting married to my brother, so her being worried isn't out of the ordinary, I guess. I do plan to work. Plan to? Do you think you can get a job that easily? You don't look like someone who can easily land a job. And will you continue living here even after you start working? What are you two talking about? Just some girls talk. The moment Henry returns, Emmy blatantly changes her attitude. I suppose it could be seen as a typical conversation between women. She glares at me threateningly, gripping my brother's arm. It's clear we won't get along, and I guess she's not interested in getting along with me either. I started cleaning up with my mother after the two of them left. She's a cheerful girl, wasn't she? Yeah. I can't believe that Henry's getting married to a girl as beautiful and as sweet as her. Yeah. Seeing my mother happy, I couldn't bring myself to tell her about Emmy's behavior when we were alone. I'm not sure if she treated me like that because she didn't like me, or if that's just how she is. Is it because I'm not as attractive as her? Should I talk to Henry about this? But I don't want to cause a rift between them because of me. Maybe I'm just overthinking. We still don't know each other well, and things might change once I start working. The reason I'm not working is because I've been taking care of my grandmother. After earning my nursing certification from a vocational school, I decided to take care of my grandmother instead of working. Being raised by a single mother, my relatives and grandmother always took good care of us. I wasn't upset about having to take care of my grandmother after graduation. In fact, I always wanted to look after her. Everyone was supportive and appreciative, and it wasn't just on me. My grandmother passed away a few months ago. After sorting out my grandparents' paperwork and getting my driver's license, I began job hunting. Fortunately, I found a job quickly. Then I got a message from Henry saying, I'm planning to marry Emmy in 6 months. I hadn't spoken to Emmy since their visit, and the thought of having to deal with her in the future was daunting. My mother attended a meeting between both families and returned with a smile saying her parents were nice and it was a pleasant meeting. Henry is busy with work, so they'll register their marriage first, but they plan to hold the wedding ceremony in 6 months. The awkwardness between Emmy and I remained, but Henry's marriage was still a great news to me. My mother and I went shopping and bought matching dishware as a gift. The wedding day approached. I received a text from Henry. Emmy wanted to hang out with me, just the two of us, and asked when I was available. Although I wanted to refuse, I also wanted to improve my relationship with Emmy, so I told him when I was off and agreed to have her over. I would have preferred a day when my mother was also free, but unfortunately we didn't have any day off together for the next couple of weeks. When I told my mother about it, she went out and bought my favorite food for me to have with Emmy. I convinced myself that Emmy was trying to motivate me to get a job since I was unemployed at the time. Then the day arrived. I saw my mother off to work and waited for Emmy. When the doorbell rang, I opened the door to find Emmy standing there with a sour look on her face. "Hey, come in." As I opened the door for her to enter, she let out a big sigh. "You bought a car, right? Henry told me. Can't you be considerate and come to pick me up? You're a grown woman now. You should know to be considerate. Also, the dishes you sent really have bad taste." I realized that she was referring to the gift I sent for getting their marriage certificate. I reaffirmed that she didn't like me and I didn't feel comfortable with her. Why did Emmy want to meet me in the first place? Emmy looked around the house, looking curious. "What exactly are you here for?" "I thought we should have a talk. You seem slow, so I figured I should just tell you up front." "A talk?" "I need to know when you're moving out. You started working, right? How about living on your own? You've had enough time being pampered. It's time to stand on your own 2 feet. The condescending tone was irritating, but I suppressed my anger. "It's none of your business, isn't it?" "You're so dense. I married your brother. I know a say in this household. I want to raise our child here. It's convenient here, and there are many places around to shop within walking distance. But I absolutely do not want to live with you. I fear living with you might turn me dull and gloomy. This house will eventually belong to your brother, so could you leave as soon as possible?" Did Henry say he wanted to live together in this house? I can't imagine him wanting that. "Even if he doesn't want it, if I ask, your brother will do it for me." She was incredibly selfish and self-centered. I was shocked. The thought of having to deal with her from now on gave me a headache. I don't understand why Henry chose someone like you. Does he know this side of you? "Sounds like you're jealous of me. Your brother, you see, is head over heels for me. He listens to whatever I say. Your mother, although plain, seems obedient, and we need someone to do the housework. I finally snagged a man with a good income." It puzzled me why only I had to leave, but it seemed like Emmy wanted to keep my mother as a housemaid. Emmy's way of speaking was infuriating. I'm usually not the type to get mad quickly, so I didn't know how to express my anger. "Hey, what's this? This bag is of that high-end brand." She picked up my bag that I had left in a corner of the living room. "Please don't touch it. It's not something a jobless person should be carrying around." She began to rummage through my bag. "Hey, stop that. This watch looks pretty expensive. It'll probably suit me better." She caught sight of a watch in my bag and picked it up. "Give it back. That was a gift from my grandmother." I forcefully took back both my bag and the watch that Emmy was admiring. "I knew it. We can't be friends. Please leave." "Sure thing." Instead of causing more trouble, she quickly left with a smirk on her face. Still, why do I have to be treated like this? I cried alone, wondering what I had done to deserve this. That night, my brother and mother returned home. They brought Emmy with them. "Charlotte, what were you thinking? Emmy told us you started a fight and treated her like a wicked stepsister." "Emmy said that the moment she tried to pick up the bag you dropped, you shoved her away." My brother shouted in anger, and my mother scolded me. "I didn't even touch her. I just took back my bag. She was the one being mean. I did my best to get along with her." I stood my ground, but "It's my fault. It seems Charlotte doesn't like me. I'm often disliked by girls my age. I guess Charlotte feels the same about me. She's upset because she feels like I've stolen her brother, right? It's my fault for not being considerate of her feelings." I was mad at Emmy, but she was crying next to me. I was clearly the bad guy here. "Apologize to Emmy, Charlotte. Even if there was a misunderstanding, you should apologize first." Even while pretending to cry, she was staring at me with her big, black eyes. It seemed like she was making a face that said, "In your face." I felt unheard and lonely, with neither my brother nor my mother listening to my side of the story. They both urged me to apologize. "You guys really think I'm the type to pick on Emmy? I see. You guys won't believe me at all. They wouldn't hear me out at all. If I truly despised you, I wouldn't have sent you guys any gift at all." Anger and sadness mixed within me, and clutching only my purse, I dashed out of the house. Since my aunt's house was close by, I ran into her place with tears running down. "What happened, Charlotte? Why are you crying so much? What's going on?" My aunt let me into her house, rubbing my back as she listened to what I had to say. Oh my, she sounds like the epitome of a nasty woman. Even my mother and brother, they don't believe me. If I go back, Emmy will be there. I don't want to go home anymore. They must have been convinced by her. If you don't want to go home, you can stay here. I'm just by myself here anyway. Do you believe me, Auntie? Of course, you're always kind and considerate of others. You would never say or do things to hurt others. As I was talking with my aunt, my phone began to vibrate. It was a call from an unsaved number. I had a bad feeling about it and was hesitant to answer, but my aunt said, "It might be that woman. Why don't you try answering it?" So I nodded, put the call on speaker so my aunt could hear, and picked up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Probably she got my number from Henry when she said she'd come to visit. I wasn't up for it, but decided to speak anyway.
Where are you?
My aunt put her index finger to her lips, signaling me to keep quiet. At a hotel. I responded with the bare minimum.
Well, do you get it now? No one believes you. Even your mother believes me. I'm so lucky to have such a kind mother-in-law. Since then, they've both been comforting me. They were so angry with you, saying what a terrible person you are.
The revelation of Emmy's true nature triggered my aunt, her eyes wide with delight. I was upset about the fact that my mother and brother didn't believe me, but seeing my aunt react this way made me want to expose more of Emmy's true side. That's fine. There's no denying that I'm two-faced. Admitting my own faults made me feel less guilty and ready to fight back. Having my aunt right next to me mentally helped me great. Emmy, you mentioned you wanted to live in that house, right? Did you know that the house is actually under my name? It was originally my grandmother's, but I inherited it. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to live in my childhood home for the rest of my life.
What? Stop lying. I've never heard anything about this.
I had no reason to tell you. You can ask my brother if you want. Emmy hung up on me after I said that. Well, that's interesting. Women like her are careful about who to pick on. She knows how to act in front of your brother and mother. So my brother really doesn't know her true nature, huh? He wouldn't have chosen her if he did. But she seems to be careless. She'll slip up sooner or later. If I step in, I might worsen your situation, so let's just see how things go for a while. After discussing with my mother, I decided to live with my aunt for a while. Some time had passed since Emmy's outburst and she called me again.
So it seems like the house really is under your name. I don't get it. Does this mean that Henry received the inheritance money? I haven't heard any of this.
I have no reason to tell you because it has nothing to do with you. By the way, my brother hasn't inherited anything. I plan to get married to my current boyfriend and live in my childhood home. It's located in a good neighborhood, great for raising kids, and has everything within walking distance.
You have a boyfriend? I'm surprised. That house doesn't suit you. From the moment I saw you, I've been bothered by you. You're really getting in my way. In fact, I hate you.
This is the first time we've agreed on something. I absolutely despise you two.
Don't you dare show your face at my wedding. Even if you do come, I'll make things even worse for you. I'll tell Henry and your mother that you're not coming to the wedding. A sister who skips her brother's wedding. I'm looking forward to hearing all sorts of things about you at the ceremony.
God knows what she'll do if I said I'd attend the ceremony. I was starting to feel like I could care less about the whole thing. I answered with a sigh. Fine, as you wish. I won't attend your wedding. Do as you please. I hung up the phone. And I was hit with a wave of exhaustion. Don't worry, love. My aunt scooted to my side right before I knew it. She seemed to have been watching the whole time. Were you told not to come to the wedding? Yeah, but I can't just accept that, right? No, let's respect the bride's wishes. Leave it to me. It's probably best not to look at any text from your mother or brother for a while, especially on the wedding day. She gave a warm smile. On the day of the wedding, I received incessant calls from my mother and brother, but I didn't even look at their texts. I figured they must be criticizing me, fueled by Emmy's words, blaming me for not attending the wedding, so I turned off my phone. I'm home. Huh? Aunt, aren't you supposed to be at the wedding? She returned home in her casual clothes. She definitely didn't look like someone who had just come from a wedding. With you not attending, there's no way I could. Our whole family decided to decline the invitation to their wedding. While I was listening to my aunt's story, the doorbell unexpectedly rang. I went to the front door and saw my mother. She was dressed in a formal gown. Charlotte, I was wrong. I'm sorry. My mother apologized to me with a tired look on her face. When my aunt invited my mother inside, my aunt excitedly asked about the wedding. It seemed like Emmy knew the entire family from my brother's side would be absent, but she kept it a secret from my brother and my mother. My brother and my mother apparently had no idea that their entire family would be absent until today. They were astonished when they arrived at the venue. It looked like Emmy was using this as an excuse to sever her relationship with our family, but since it was a wedding, many guests were friends and people from work, and there were quite a few eyebrows raised at the fact that my mother was the only person attending from the groom's side. The ceremony went on amidst the unusual atmosphere. In the midst of this, Emmy, who was supposed to be receiving all the love and blessings, couldn't bear being whispered about on her big day and got into a fight with my brother. Having heard Emmy's incoherent slander about me, my mother seemed to have understood that I was telling the truth. The wedding ended with the atmosphere at its worst. While my aunt was explaining the situation to my mother, a call came in from Emmy. I put the call on speaker.
What the hell is going on?
The moment I picked up the phone, Emmy's loud voice pierced my ears. What's the matter, Emmy? Why are you shouting?
You orchestrated this, did you? You wicked bastard. You ruined my wedding.
I didn't do anything. You're the one who said that I was a nuisance and that I shouldn't come to the wedding, right? I just consulted with my aunt about it. Both of my parents' families have been around each other for long, and all of our relatives get along very well. Didn't you know that? This time, my aunt had spread the news to all our relatives. Many of the relatives were very fond of me, as I used to take care of my grandmother. They didn't want to attend the wedding of a bride who tried to belittle me, so it seems they all decided to not show up to the wedding.
What the hell? This is too unacceptable. I'm going to make you pay for this.
Why should I? You're the one who treated me like a nuisance.
You were not working and staying at home, yet you were thanked and loved by everyone around you. You're nothing more than a basic chick who puts in no effort to stay well dressed, yet you own things like branded bags and expensive watches, and they don't even suit you at all. Now, the least you can do is cooperate with me a little bit.
Didn't you hear that I was not working due to some circumstances? I don't want to be around someone with an attitude like yours.
I don't care about what you have going on. You're always living your best life. It's not fair.
Emmy, is what you just said true?
Henry, why are you here?
Emmy, my sister-in-law, was flustered by the sudden sound of my brother's voice. Mid-conversation, Henry had come to visit our aunt's house and had been silently listening to our conversation. Is that how you've been feeling this whole time? What you said about Charlotte was all lies, wasn't it?
No, it's not like that.
Henry pulled out a watch from his pocket. It belonged to me. That's Grandma's watch. Why do you have it, Henry? It was in our house. I never lent it to Emmy. I nodded in agreement. Since I was staying at my aunt's house, I probably hadn't noticed that the watch was missing. When Emmy noticed the watch, she seemed to be perplexed, but I didn't expect her to have stolen it.
I'm sorry, Henry. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. I was jealous of Charlotte. I'm truly sorry.
Emma apologized to Henry. Emmy, could you also apologize to me for telling me to leave my parents' house, for trying to turn my mother into a housekeeper, for talking smack about me behind my back to my mother and brother, for stealing, and for treating me as if I'm unworthy of respect? Please apologize for all of it. Emmy, it seemed, was too prideful to apologize to me, so she ended the call with a scream. My brother and mother apologized to me. They apologized for not believing me. They both seemed to have received cold stares at the wedding, and having them apologize to me made me feel much better. After that, Emmy was brought by her parents to apologize. Henry filed a divorce from her. She came crying to me while apologizing to me, but I firmly refused her. Henry's intention to divorce was firm, and their marriage, which had not even lasted a year, came to an end. Emmy was also found to have been stealing at work, which turned into a major issue, and she lost her job. I heard rumors that she got in trouble with the police, but I'm not sure it's true or not. As for me, my life's back to normal, and I occasionally visit my relatives. I bragged to Emmy that I had a boyfriend, but in reality, I have no love interest, and I'm now being pestered by my aunt about it.
All right, take care of dinner and baths for the grandkids, will ya? Claiming she had errands to run, Cindy tried to leave her grandchildren with me. Enough is enough. I've been inconvenienced by her time and time again. But what did Cindy just say? Take care of dinner and baths for the grandkids? She thinks I'm some kind of maid. This is ridiculous. I can't take it anymore, so I decide to stand my ground. Looking Cindy square in the eye, I retort. Excuse me, I'm not a nanny, you know. I'm Liliana, 72 years old. My husband, Victor, is a year older than me, 73. We have one daughter. She moved to the big city for a job and has been living in New York ever since. But she does visit us during long holidays. Though she didn't show any signs of getting married, even after turning 35, she finally did last year, giving both Victor and me peace of mind. We thought we'd made the most of the remaining years of our lives, so we decided to build the new house we'd always planned on. I was the one who strongly desired the new house. Being a watercolor painter, I'd always wanted a lovely studio, even though I've made do with a room in our home until now. Our old house was quite outdated. The floors creaked with every step, and the plumbing needed renovation. So we figured we might as well build a new house, customized to our liking. Though I'm past 70, I still have a decent income from opening solo exhibitions and publishing books. Therefore, I financed this new home. I haven't told anyone it's in my name. There's no need to. Since building my dream home, I've been thrilled to paint every day in my gorgeous studio. Victor, though retired, helps out at a friend's farm during the day to keep himself sharp. In the evening, we share a meal in our cozy, wood-accented dining room and then relax in our spacious living room, sipping tea on the sofa. We often talk about how great it was to build this house. However, a dark cloud began to loom about a month after we moved in. My brother-in-law and his wife, upon hearing about our new home, started showing up unannounced. They are Victor's older brother, Randall, and his wife, Cindy. Their house is only a 20-minute drive from ours. While I understand they might be curious about the new place, it's just me at home during the day when they decide to drop by. I've got work to do as well, you know, so frequent visits are really inconvenient to me. The third time my brother-in-law and his wife came over, I tried to gently let them know. I'm working from home, so I can't really entertain guests right now. They replied with, "That's fine, don't worry about us. We'll make ourselves at home." Sure, you might not worry, but I do. I bite my tongue to keep from saying anything. Before long, Cindy starts bringing over her 5 grandkids. My brother-in-law's family has 2 daughters, both married with children. These kids, all 5 of them, range from 1st to 4th grade. I've met them before and they're adorable, but having them make noise while I'm trying to work at home is a different story. It'd be different if Cindy gave me a heads up. Then I could prepare for their visits, but no. She just started showing up unannounced with kids whenever they had a day off from school. It's just me and Cindy trying to manage these 5 little rascals. And she doesn't discipline them at all. The kids say they're on an adventure, running through my house, playing tag and superhero games, even scratching up my walls. When I try to step in, Cindy says, "Why are you getting mad? They're just kids." To add insult to injury, she criticizes me for not having snacks or juice ready. "We come over all the time. You knew the grandkids would be here. Why didn't you prepare anything? You're so inconsiderate." Well, I don't want you here in the first place, so why should I? Cindy's lax attitude only escalates the children's behavior until they actually walk into my home studio. Thankfully, they didn't touch my work, but that was the day I installed a lock on my studio door. Even with the studio off limits, the rest of my home gets trashed whenever they come over. When I finally asked her to reduce the visits, she told me, "This will be good practice for when you have grandkids." Yeah, right. I won't have 5 all at once, and if they were my grandkids, I'd be keeping an eye on them. Today, after Cindy and the kids left, I let out a sigh as I looked at the room scattered with toys and candy wrappers. The toys probably came from their home, and the candy must have been given by Cindy. Again? My husband Victor just got home from work and says this to me, visibly frustrated. I get why he's annoyed, but I wish he'd say that to Cindy, not me. He's always been hesitant to speak to his older brother Randall, and the same goes for Cindy. Even when I ask him to do something about Cindy's frequent visits, he shrugs it off, saying, "It's not like they come every day. Taking care of a few kids can't be that hard." When I try to explain how much trouble these little monsters cause, he responds, "They're just kids. If you watch them properly, the house wouldn't get this messy." I guess Victor can say that because he has never taken care of those little monsters. The final word from Victor is this: "Enough already. Hurry up and clean up. You haven't even started making dinner, have you?" Look, I've been busy watching the kids all day. I haven't had a moment to cook. Then one day, Cindy crosses the line. She brings her 5 grandkids over and says, "I've got errands to run. Please take care of their dinner and bath," before heading out the door. That's it. I'm at my wit's end. After putting up with all her nonsense until now, what did Cindy just say? Take care of their dinner and bath? She clearly thinks I'm some kind of housekeeper. Unbelievable. I've had enough. It's time for me to strike back. I lock eyes with Cindy and say, You do know I'm single, right?" Cindy freezes, not knowing what I'm talking about. "What are you going on about all of a sudden? Did you have a fight with Victor? Just take care of the grandkids, okay?" Ignoring Cindy's attempt to brush me off, I decide to drop a bombshell. I'm divorcing Victor, so I can't look after the kids. "What? If that's true, why are you still here? Shouldn't you be leaving?" "I just came back to pick up my stuff." The truth is, I haven't actually divorced him yet, but I'm seriously considering it. I contemplate telling Cindy that this is my house, and Victor should be the one leaving, but I decide not to. Not here. Not now. If we do get divorced, Victor will have to leave. The reason this even came up is because of a fight I had with Victor. Cindy keeps bringing her grandkids over. They're running wild, and I can't manage them all. When I told Victor, he didn't get it. To make matters worse, he says things like, "Clean up the room already. Is dinner ready yet?" That was the last straw for me. I can't be with someone who doesn't understand my situation. Let's get a divorce. Victor was initially flustered, pleading for me to reconsider, but then he said, "Don't you find Randall's grandkids cute? They don't come every day. Just take care of them when they visit on weekends. If you keep making a fuss, they'll never want to visit us when we have our own grandkids." Let's start with a separation. Before I knew it, those words had escaped my lips, emotionless, directed at Victor. Fed up with Victor, who wouldn't even consider what I'd been saying to him all this time, and only blamed me when I mentioned divorce. I decided to take action right away. I quickly packed up some essentials and left the house. I didn't want to leave my own home with my favorite studio, but Cindy's constant intrusions made it impossible to focus on my painting. So I opted for renting a short-term apartment to get some peace. Just as I was packing my art supplies and clothes, Cindy showed up. "I'll be leaving, so you'll have to talk to Victor about the rest." I gestured towards Victor, who had just come out from the back room. Victor was usually busy helping out at a friend's farm, but he had stayed home that day, apparently waiting for me. I had no intention of going back until Victor understood what I was going through. If he expects me to take care of our future grandchildren, then he'd better set an example. In the short-term apartment, Cindy stopped showing up, and I could finally focus on my work. Though it's a shame I couldn't use the studio I had built, at least I knew I could paint in peace. 3 weeks flew by as I immersed myself in art, keeping my phone off the entire time. When I finally turned my phone back on, I found messages and missed calls from Victor every single day. The last message read, "I get it now. What you've been going through? I was wrong. Please come back." It looked like actually dealing with those unruly kids had finally opened his eyes. I texted him, "We'll talk at home," and returned home after 3 weeks. Victor looked exhausted when he greeted me. "I'm sorry," was the first thing he said. The day I left to get my stuff, he had taken care of the kids for the first time, and found it way more challenging than he had expected. He said he couldn't manage cooking and bathing them while they ran around and didn't listen to him. Eventually, he had to ask Cindy to take them back. It seemed like Cindy kept bringing the kids over every time their school was off, leaving the house a mess. Victor told me he was doing his best to clean up afterward. He finally realized the tough situation I had been in and sincerely apologized for his earlier indifference. "I'll go talk to Cindy at Randall's house and tell her not to come over anymore. Please, let's start over." Seeing Victor's earnest attitude, I decided to forgive him for everything. Aside from the issues with Cindy and the kids, I had no other complaints about Victor. Thus, our separation ended after 3 weeks. So Victor made good on his word and went to have a talk with his brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Randall and Cindy. Randall was initially shocked, as Victor had never been assertive before, but he apologized, saying he didn't realize the situation was so bad. Cindy, as usual, didn't listen, insisting it was good practice for when they have grandchildren. In the middle of this heated conversation, their nieces and the 5 rowdy kids showed up at the parents' house, apparently by coincidence. The nieces asked Victor what was going on, so he told them how Cindy kept bringing the kids over to our house unannounced, leading to our separation. Upon hearing this, the nieces confronted Cindy, angrily asking, "Why did you do this? Mom said we can look after the kids. You've been taking them to Victor's house the whole time?" Cornered by the niece's questions, Cindy tried to deflect, saying, "Oh, that's not true." However, a spontaneous testimony from the kids revealed the lie. "Grandma always says we should go to our great-uncle's house because it's cleaner than here." Hearing this, the nieces scolded Cindy, saying they couldn't believe she'd been troubling me like this and asked her to never do it again. As it turns out, my nieces admire me as their watercolor painting teacher. During high school, they were part of the art club, and we used to paint landscapes together on nice days. Since they got married and had kids, we haven't had time to paint together. But they sometimes send me their art on WhatsApp and visit me when I have solo exhibitions. The nieces were also angry on my behalf. "Why didn't you listen to Liliana? It's totally understandable that she left." When confronted, all Victor could say was, "I'm sorry." Later, the nieces and kids came over to apologize. The kids had been reprimanded by their parents and were quietly sitting down. They had given us a heads up this time, so I prepared snacks and juices that the kids like. When I offered them, the kids politely said, "Thank you," and began eating. As the nieces and I chatted about art studios, I decided to give them a tour of my favorite studio. Upon entering, their eyes sparkled and they said, "Wow, this is amazing." Their compliments made me feel good. Before entering the studio, the nieces warned the kids not to touch anything. So the kids looked around without messing with the art, asking their aunts, "What's this? What's that?" After finding out about Cindy's constant visits to our house, the nieces decided to stop taking the kids to their parents' house. I felt a little sorry for Cindy, but apparently she never disciplines her grandchildren. The last time they went to a toy store, she caused a lot of trouble. One of the kids was swinging a toy sword and ended up hitting other products, breaking them and suffering a minor scratch. Typically, it's the parents' fault if their kids break something in a store. However, Cindy angrily confronted the store clerk, saying, "Why do you have breakable items in a toy store? What if a child gets hurt? What are you going to do about it?" A parent of one of the niece's kids' friends happened to be there and contacted the niece. She rushed to the store, deeply apologized, and compensated for the broken item. Hearing about this incident made her even angrier. You'd think the kids would miss their grandma if she was always spoiling them, but apparently that's not the case, according to the niece. When the niece asked the kids if they wanted to see their grandma, they said, "Nah, we'd rather go to our great-aunt's house with Mommy. I want to play with great-uncle again," they added. So in spoiling the kids and causing constant troubles for others, Cindy ended up being abandoned by both her niece and her grandchildren. Sad, but she had it coming. Cindy was so desperate to see her grandkids that she pleaded with the niece. I won't take them to my son-in-law's place anymore. Just let them visit like before. But the nieces ignored her, thinking she would just cause trouble somewhere else. Then one day, Cindy apparently went to the elementary school to pick up the kids without telling the niece. The school teacher thought she was a kidnapper and called the police. Cindy was quickly released after the nieces explained to the cops, but not without receiving a long lecture from them. She's now even banned from attending school events. We get that it's tough not being able to see the grandkids, but if she really loved them, she shouldn't have pawned them off on us in the first place. Cindy confuses spoiling with loving. Until Cindy can properly care for the children, they won't be visiting her. The nieces have started bringing the kids to our house every now and then. Of course, they ask for my permission beforehand. These once rowdy kids are now quietly drawing pictures. We laid down a vinyl sheet so they won't make a mess, and they're freely drawing with crayons and colored pencils. The nieces are watching them while painting houses. Great aunt, look! One of the kids shows me a drawing of a superhero team. Oh, you're quite the artist, I said. Just then, Victor comes home from work, and two of the superhero-loving kids run towards him. He's the villain! They start chasing him around. Victor pleads with the nieces to stop the kids, but they laugh and say, Well, you were the real villain, weren't you? Picking on Liliana. I've reformed now. Help me. Victor and the nieces and I share a laugh. We don't know if we'll ever have our own grandkids, but thanks to these children, we're getting plenty of practice, and Victor won't be playing the villain anymore.